Hello, everybody. Episode 16 of the Sports Clichés podcast with me, Craig. To my left on my screen, probably right on your screen, is Jay. Uh, big week, obviously. Super Bowl weekend. We will be breaking down the whole thing, heads to tails, who we think's gonna shine. Maybe some surprise picks about guys who might shine off big. There's always one in the Super Bowl who kind of breaks off and has a big game you're not expecting. We're going to go heads to tails, but first, Tap, how you doing this week?
Doing good, man. Yeah, no, it's exciting week. Everything leading up. I've seen some interesting developments here. Obviously, we have maybe some coaching hires to talk about that come on the board. Obviously, we just came off a night of finding out what our NFL awards for the year were. Touch upon that. Our Hall of Fame class of 2022 as well. And of course, we'll take a deep dive here a little bit into the Super Bowl and really, who's gonna come out on top? We got the upstart Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Nasty, Shiesty, however you want to call him, good old Joey Burrow leading his troops, and then Matty Stafford, his own little comeback story himself, getting himself out the fuck of Detroit, Michigan, and coming down to Southern California, and right away having the opportunity to do exactly what this team has really honestly been built for, win a Super Bowl. Right now is their opportunity to do so, and it should be an exciting game. Absolutely.
Well, do you want to start with the Super Bowl, or should we start with coaches first?
I say let's jump right into the game myself. Okay. Let's go right into the meat of it. Let's not put off any longer. This is the big finale right here. So, this is I've taken a look at the team stats and some of that stuff right now compared to these two teams. Hilariously similar teams right now going against one another.
There is one stat on here that shocks the hell out of me, and it was the one that popped out to me right away because I was shocked by it. But I also have a list of the team stats here. The Rams allowed more sacks this year than the Bengals? I couldn't believe that when I saw that. Rams allowed 50 sacks this year. Bengals only allowed 42. I couldn't believe that when I saw that.
That's quite interesting. I thought Joe Burrow took at least 50 sacks so far this year.
That's what I thought, but I got the team stats here on USA Today. They got like a full breakdown of all the team stats and how they compare against each other. They got the Rams allowing more sacks. I don't know how the sacks allowed stat works. If maybe there's something about it that, like, on a scramble it doesn't count as a sack allowed or something. I'm not sure how that works, but they do have the Rams as allowing more sacks than the Bengals.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I do not have that. I'm not looking at the same thing, I suppose. I got Stafford with 30 sacks on the year when Joey Burrow with 50 plus 51.
See, and that aligned more with what I thought.
I mean, and perhaps obviously some playoff stats are gonna throw that a bit. Although Bengals already had their trouble with the Titans. With an incredible 9 sacks given up game there. It's been a little interesting, I suppose, on in that regard. Usually teams that let up 9 sacks aren't
you're not winning that game very often.
Yeah, but there you go.
And, I mean, you're allowing 9 sacks to the Titans. I don't want to think what Aaron Donald's going to do to your offensive line, but on paper, this game isn't close, right? But that's why you don't play games on paper, right? Like, statistically, it's close. But if you look at the two rosters and just go, like, the Rams are by far the better team, right? But there's something about this Bengals team, man. They've got this weird mix of young players who just come in and ball out, guys like Burrow and Chase, and then veterans who've just kind of snuck around, guys like Trey Hendrickson. We talked about him last week. The dude was invisible for the last couple years in New Orleans. Now all of a sudden he's got 14 sacks this season. He's been an absolute monster on the defensive side. It's it's this weird mix of a Bengals team that you would look on paper and go, they're okay. They're not winning the Super Bowl, but here they are and in it with a legitimate chance.
I mean, I think more than a legitimate chance. I mean, this is a team that, as I just kind of brought up there, you're talking about a Rams team. This was kind of expected. Obviously, it's a tough NFC. Having to potentially go through, the teams like the Packers, the Bucks, the Niners ended up being that this year, even though it wasn't quite there. When you got to go through those, I mean, obviously, playoffs both sides. It doesn't matter AFC, NFC. You're going to have to go through some tough teams. The Rams, to their credit, they, 12-5 on the regular season, only really losing games against pretty damn tough opponents, and they still, won plenty of those games as well. Cincinnati, had some interesting hiccups, and then they just they phoned it in for that last game against the Browns, so I almost don't even count that one. But the Bengals, a pretty goddamn respectable record against it as well. But I think Rams were more in line with, expectations, I suppose. Bengals came out of goddamn nowhere. No, I gotta think, if you're talking about a single playoff win for this team, and if that's where their run ended, I think a lot of their fans, their fan base, they would have been hyped. They would have been happy. They got a future to look forward to. This was a team that was, a handful of wins maybe. And when I say a handful, like maybe 5 wins were expected of this team going into this season, based on just how bad they looked last season. And then all of a sudden, you got a offensive line that still has to do work. I think, honestly, I'm taking a look at the stats, man. It's Burrow got sacked 51 times. Matty Stafford 30.
Yeah, no, I don't know where USA Today got this.
Yeah, they're smoking that good over there.
Yeah, apparently.
Something like that. But regardless, it's I think it's quite a step up. You remove that 9-sack game from Tennessee, and it's actually not too crazy disparity then at that point. And 9 sacks in a game is kind of an outlier stat, I feel. Bengals kind of playing with house money, Who expected them to be here? Who expects them to win this game? You got everybody loves an underdog, so Bengals have to be playing with all the, you could be a little looser. You're going to go into that game not feeling the pressure as much. And it's kind of interesting. In almost an opposite fashion, but I like the way they're doing it. They're probably not feeling the pressure so much, but they're honed in. Last night, and we'll touch upon the specific ones as we go forward, but for the season awards, Cincinnati staying at the hotel with their team and just doing via remotely, via Zoom or whatever, just videoing in to the awards, and while all the LA Rams ended up coming up and showing up. Granted, it's just a Thursday night, nothing too crazy about it, but at the same time, I think that this team kind of operates kind of as a unit, and they probably all decided, no need for any of us to go to this damn award show. Screw it. We'll show face and that sort of thing, but no need to have this distract from going into this game. So you gotta love the energy that the Bengals have. They have the momentum. They have the good vibes and the underdog story going for them. So you gotta like this team going into this game.
No doubt, and The whole them not going to the awards thing versus the Rams, I've heard that brought up a couple times too. I don't know. I could go one way or the other about it, right? Like, I don't think it necessarily describes the Rams are taking them lightly or anything like that. It's just two different approaches to the same scenario.
Right.
But I'm with you. I like the fact that they're dialed in. This team is focused. I'd even take it a step further than you. You said one playoff win in this team would have been happy. I think the fact they made the playoffs alone, their fan base was like, hey, way above our expectations of the year. This is a team that won 4 games last year. Right?
Yeah.
And I understand that Joe Burrow got hurt in that, but the reason Joe Burrow got hurt is their team just wasn't that good. Right? Like, he was having to make miracles every time he touched the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I was, and a lot of folks, I think, we were worried for the kid's health because we saw what he had. We saw that he had some good ability, um, and with the weapons he had at that point, he was still making it work when uh, in a situation that you wouldn't think they'd have any kind of offensive pop. That was there, but the kid was getting killed back there every game, and eventually, had to succumb to injury with that. And you're just hoping that he survives. You just hope he goes out the season. And I think there was some. It's interesting, after an injury, that sort of thing. You could definitely see some quarterbacks, they're changed after an injury like that. You talk about lower leg injury, and yeah, everybody thinks about, the arm and that sort of thing. But having, like, your legs under you and feeling confident in your movement and that sort of thing, that's a big thing for a quarterback. I think you could even see quarterbacks like Jimmy G over the years, from before his injury against the Chiefs where he tore his ACL running down the sideline to after. You're talking about a quarterback like Jimmy G that actually really liked to get out of the pocket, really, run the bootlegs, was a little bit more of considered a mobile quarterback back then. Definitely didn't happen after the injury. And I think with a guy like Joe Burrow, you're just hoping that he would still be able to perform to that level. So it's great to see, the kid slinging it out there. And just crazy to think that the Bengals have, if they're willing to keep going with it, they got every bit of a chance to be a long-term contender in the AFC.
Yeah, I think for the long run, there's still some things they have to do. Obviously, that offensive line needs to get better.
Sure.
Right. That's the first things first. The defense is a weird mishmash of things that seems to have worked, which isn't a bad thing, right? Sometimes that's how you find your identity as a defense. Is you just throw things at the wall and see what sticks, and you build off of that. Right, that Bengals defense last year was nothing. So now that they've kind of built a little bit of an identity, they're going to have to continue to build off of that. So they got some things they're going to have to do if they want to sustain this Chief style, or even what we see with the Bills kind of going forward. But there's a lot of things to like, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, they haven't been getting as much credit. And obviously, you're talking about on the other side, the other team defensive unit. Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey. Like, you got some guys up there. You got some names. So, all the credit, obviously, to that. There's no reason why they're not kind of the more talked about one. I really like this Bengals defense. We've hit upon him before. He put up some great numbers, 14 and a half sacks, I believe, this year for Trey Hendrickson, one of the defensive ends there. Sam Hubbard on the other side got 7 himself. So they're really getting after there on the edges. Yeah. They got DJ and BJ in the middle as far as their tackles. Logan Wilson, linebacker for him.
Yeah,
fucking stud.
Absolute difference maker.
Tied for the most picks on the team, along with having the most tackles on the team. So that's a guy who's just getting around, making plays, whether it's in the turnover game or just that straight up tackle. You need a linebacker that can tackle, and he's proven that. Love Von Bell as their safety as well. Eli Apple has been highlighted as kind of being maybe a weak point for him, but he also made what I would consider game-saving tackle in that previous game. If they don't stop that touchdown from the Chiefs, that game's fucking over before the half ends. So,
and my point about mishmash of weird random people that you just throw at the wall and see who sticks. Eli Apple was dead last year. This guy, like, the Giants were just, he was nothing, right? Like, he came into the league with huge potential. This guy's going to be the next generation of cornerback. And bust. That's all he was. He's played a big role in Cincinnati. Now, no, he's not the next generation of cornerback like some people thought he would be. But he has played a damn important role on this team. And for a guy who, like I said, was dead in the water not too long ago as a prospect, that deserves a lot of credit.
Right.
Similarly to Trey Hendrickson, in that, when you go from such a low point to get to where he's at right now, it's impressive.
I mean, and you need guys to, uh, you put people in a different situation. I mean, I think with this team, I really think they have built up a pretty damn good front seven there, along with some good safety help, and they just need some corners to help them out. I really like Awuzie as well. I think he's their slot corner, I believe. Um, that dude just knocks down balls, and when you're talking about, you're potentially going up against a short route guy, he might be your guy on Cup. Who knows? I mean, this is going to be a very interesting situation. I think it's a matchup that has been kind of examined throughout the week here. As far as the weapons, the offensive side of Los Angeles, and being able to potentially just wreak havoc on this Cincinnati defense, it's going to fall a little bit on these guys. I think a guy like Awuzie, if he could actually be effective in that slot and really take away that short route stuff to Cup. Obviously, OBJ has been a fantastic story for the Rams, and Eli Apple. Is that going to be the guy you leave him with? How much are you shading coverage over there? How much is that going to dictate your offensive game plan? I think, while you maybe worry about, a Sony Michel and a Cam Akers for the Rams, I think all the focus people have seen is on, is Matt Stafford going to be able to sling the rock to these guys, and this Rams offense going to be really operating through the air. So they'll be tested. They'll be tested, and very interesting as far as the pass rush is concerned. Outside edge guys against the Rams, they could kind of, sometimes those Rams tackles are actually pretty goddamn efficient at keeping Stafford protected. I think up the middle is where you're able to really get to the Rams on this offensive line. And so I wonder if DJ and BJ in the middle there are able to, or maybe they scheme in some stunts or something like that to get the pass rush at the middle, because I think the tackles for the Rams are pretty goddamn good. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Is Hendrickson going to be able to cause some havoc? Is Hubbard going to be able to cause some havoc? That's been their typical go-to this year, but it might have to come a little bit more up the middle, unless you want to give Stafford a bunch of time. And I think that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough for this Bengals defense to fully defend. Someone's getting open.
Yeah, you mentioned DJ and BJ. I think they do play a big part in this game, obviously. In particular, I really, really like BJ Hill, right? A guy who, again, thrown at the wall, right? This is a guy who was a mid-round draft pick for the Giants a few years ago.
Right.
Was never really that great with them. Was essentially a like for like trade of guys who just weren't really working with the Bengals. They traded Billy Price for him, right? Billy Price, similar thing, somebody who the Bengals liked a lot at center, who just never really worked for them. So they just swap a couple guys who weren't really working for them, and BJ Hill's become a big part of this defense. He's the stats don't pop at you, but as a defensive tackle, they sometimes don't, right? We talk about that with Vita Vea all the time,
Sure.
Right? Like, Vita Vea is, to me, the best DT in the game. And the stats aren't going to blow your mind, but that's not the point of having a guy like a Vita Vea. I think BJ Hill, in a similar vein, not as good as Vita Vea, but does similar things. The stats don't pop at you because what he does is kind of prevent teams from doing certain things, right? The Rams, who already have trouble running the ball, are going to find that getting past DJ Reader and BJ Hill is not going to be an easy test, right? Like, I don't see a lot of room there for Cam Akers in this game. And now if they're going to have to double team Aaron Donald or double team on the other side, you're going to be causing issues up the middle. It's a tough tough matchup for that Rams offensive line, which has been good this year. Right. I'm not trying to sell short the Rams offensive line, but I think this Bengals defensive line is criminally underrated right now. And I think coming into this game, they got something to prove because they're looking at the other side of this thing, right? Trey Hendrickson's got the most sacks coming into this game, right? It's not Aaron Donald. Trey Hendrickson outsacked them this year. So they're looking at this game going, well, hold on. Why are they getting all the love as the front seven when we're out here doing the exact same things? We're out here dominating offensive lines too.
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting because Aaron Donald. You're talking about an interior nose tackle, and although I have kind of harped on the idea that teams don't necessarily run zone or base defenses anymore. They run nickel, as their main defense. But LA scheme wise, they're a 3-4. Once they added Von Miller into that piece, they knew exactly how they're going to operate that, and so Aaron Donald, although he's listed as a defensive tackle, nose tackle, that sort of thing, his opportunities as far as how they have to slide protections over, he is going to get there a decent amount.
Yeah.
While the Bengals run a 4-3, those edges are supposed to be the ones to get their center just close as much as possible. So it's just that's gonna play into the interior lineman sack numbers and that sort of thing. But I think what's interesting in this one for the we talk about the offensive line for the Rams there, and their matchup against the defense here for the Bengals. On the other side, it's going to be very interesting, obviously, because you're talking about a much maligned previously, wasn't very good sort of offensive line for the Bengals, and one that has given up 9 sacks in the game this postseason. Going against this defense, and obviously brought up Aaron Donald, brought up Von Miller, and then that isn't to discount some of their other guys. Ashawn Robinson, one of their DNs, kind of working opposite or working the same side. It looks as Von Miller. It is a guy that's he's either going to suck up a body hopefully and allow Von to get to the outside and get around the line, or he's going to be able to take advantage of them having to slide protections over for Von Miller.
And obviously, the Rams have a significant offensive line advantage, right? Like, the Bengals' offensive line has been better this year.
Yeah.
But we're talking better from potentially one of the worst offensive lines we've ever seen. They're now just pretty bad, right? Whereas the Rams' offensive line, that's a pretty good offensive line. You talk about Andrew Whitworth, Rob Havenstein. Talk about Brian Allen at center, one of the better centers in the game. They've had to roll through a few guards this year, but for the most part, all of them have played well. That seems to be the Rams' biggest advantage coming into this game is offensive line versus offensive line.
Yeah,
right. You would trust the Rams line to keep Stafford a little bit more clean.
Yeah, I'm very interested in how scheme wise they start to work it, because right now, I think the worry going into this game and through these next couple of weeks, it's looking good, and apparently, my man came out in like a full stiff leg brace during one of the fan days or something like that this week down there in LA, and Uzama it's ripped off the full leg brace or whatever. And crowd pops off, of course. Basically, he's like, "I'm back, motherfucker." That'll be a big part for them. I kind of brought up Uzama before. When you talk about guys like a Joe Mixon and P. Ryan back there, as far as your backers, I wonder what kind of schemes. You gotta maybe have guys come in, be able to chip, be able to shift their coverage over. I think anybody that's going to be in that backfield. You're going to be looking at if the Bengals are moving, this is a team that likes to go 3 wide. They like to get their weapons out there. We'll talk about both sides as far as their offensive weapons, I suppose, soon. But that's going to be a big, I think, that's going to be a big factor. If they're able to kind of slide coverages over, be able to handle both an AD, and Aaron Donald, and a Von Miller on your standard pass rush plays. You'll probably have to bring in another guy to chip and that sort of thing. It probably can't just be those 5 guys on the Bengals line, just because they're just not quite there yet. But if they're able to operate within that and still have the ability to spread the ball around, that's going to be crucial, because Jalen Ramsey's only one guy, and with the injuries that this team's had at safety, as far as the Rams are concerned, this is a Bengals team that has shown that they could put up numbers just like the Rams can as far as offense is concerned. And oddly enough, a funny little stat going into this one, both teams are tied exactly the same. They have the exact same points per game.
Yeah,
this year at 27.1 points per game. Actually, a lot of hilarious stats that are very, very close between these two teams. You're talking about a little over a yard more per game for the Rams, as they're the ninth most ninth in total yards versus 10th in total yards by the Bengals. They're 7th and 5th respectively in passing yards. Oddly enough, I really like the running game and the running options that the Bengals have, but they're right there at the bottom half of the league in rushing yards, right there with the Rams as well. Very similar defensive sides as well. You're talking less than a half point per game that separates the two of these teams as well on the defensive side. So a lot of similarities, and it'll be interesting. The amount of weapons that Burrow has to go to, and I think he has showed that he's willing to go to all of them. Jamar obviously is going to be the big talk, but everybody from Uzama, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, this is dangerous Bengals
Yeah, it's
team.
interesting, isn't it? The names aren't as flashy, right? There's no Odell Beckham Jr. behind Jamar Chase to really be that flashy name, but T. Higgins, we've mentioned him all season as just what a solid number 2 guy he is. You got Tyler Boyd, CJ Uzama. They love to flex out Samaje Perine. They'll throw the ball to Joe Mixon when they get the chance, right? Like they use everything they got, and all these guys can play, right? Like the Rams 3 wide receivers, when you talk about Odell Beckham, Cooper Kupp, and Van Jefferson, probably got a bit more name value to them. But I mean, as far as pure talent goes, this is about as close as a wide receiver matchup as you can get, right? With Chase, Boyd, and Higgins. Both teams feel pretty comfortable no matter who they have to throw the ball to, I would imagine. They're very strong wide receiver cores in this game, obviously led by 2 of the best receivers in the game, in Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp. Now, obviously, this would be a little bit different if the Rams still had Robert Woods. That's a big miss for that Rams offense, right? Robert Woods, one of the better 2 guys, if not the best 2 guy in the NFL. It sucks, but to their credit, and to his credit, Odell Beckham Jr. fitted in really well as their number 2.
Yeah, I think you have to, you go in your expectations with a guy like OBJ, and you'll be able to stretch the field a little bit more, and he's gonna do that for you at the beginning. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a lot more of a gel fit. He's not gonna have the same skill set, and operate the same way as Robert Woods, but they've been able to work that offense, and it's kind of interesting. You're talking about a guy. OBJ was brought in pretty much the exact same time that Robert Woods went out, almost the exact same time. And so it's kind of interesting what this offense would have looked like in that situation. You can only get so many touches to so many guys. So, what does a guy's like somebody like OBJ's numbers look like? If you have a Robert Woods who you're also trying to get the ball to, but. I think for this team, yeah, Robert Woods is a big one as far as the injury is concerned. You know what's another big injury for this Rams team that's kind of interesting? Jordan Fuller. Jordan Fuller is a huge one for this team. You're talking about a guy who would fly around. He got involved in just about every play, and as you want from a safety. Obviously, they've had to go to the well. They've had to go to the retirement boards as far as getting help in for this
Yeah.
team. And of course, you like when you get a guy that's kind of been in the house before. So they got a little fortunate in that regard. But uh, I think again you're taking a look at these weapons for the Bengals, and if they're able to kind of work their scheme to give Joey Burrow a little bit of time here, I see a big game from our guy. I see Joe, potentially, we'll throwing out an early number, 3 tutties potentially in this game. I'm feeling for Joey B.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Another thing that's gonna hurt the Rams a lot is not having Tyler Higbee. Right, the tight end
Huge,
position's become
huge.
so important in the NFL, and Tyler Higbee's one of those guys that's just a solid option for Matty Stafford. They don't have him. It's gonna fall to, it seems like, probably Bryson Hopkins to be their guy. I,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's tough to say, right? It's tough to say if you can even get a reliable game from Bryson Hopkins, given that, he's really never played before, right? So he's gotten a few snaps here and there, but for the most part, he's never really seen the field that much.
Yeah.
And
5 games, 1 catch for 9
yeah,
yards.
yeah, and now going into the Super Bowl, he's gonna need to kind of be a safety valve for Matthew Stafford. Another guy who again, I saw a little bit of before he got drafted, played at Purdue. Uh, but that can only tell you so much, right? It I feel like that's the real advantage for the Bengals on offense. CJ Ozama, you know damn well what you're getting out of him, right? You know exactly what you're going to get on every play. He's got reliable hands. He's a great blocker. The Rams at tight end right now are a real question mark without Tyler Higbee. And that, as I mentioned, that at tight end position is such an important position in the NFL nowadays. That's a big loss for them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think Higbee in games I've seen him in, he's someone that Stafford's going to be able to go to early. Someone who's going to get you in one of those early drives that they end up leading down for a touchdown, whether he catches it or not. But he'll get you like a first down or two in one of those early drives, I've noticed, and maybe not so much later into the game. Doesn't seem like he's maybe as targeted as much, but yeah, I mean your tight ends are going to, at this point, they got to be part of your offensive game plan. As far as passing the ball, and both these teams, they're going to operate through that passing game. You spread them all out, and then all of a sudden, you got all that middle to work with. Who's going to be there? The guy that's probably lined up right next to your offensive line. You can just put on like a little, stop, little curl route or something like that. Just, yeah, always nice to have those safety valves. I think a guy like Matt Stafford has utilized that well, and yeah, we'll see. You get thrown into the fire like that for a guy that's only caught one ball in the season.
Yeah.
And you'll likely get some stuff your way, but I think the idea of also having him, he'll probably be blocking a lot too, and he's going to be probably blocking. He's going to be blocking, a Hendrickson, or he's going to be blocking a Sam Hubbard.
And that's where I think the scary thing lies in this game, right? Is the place where I think losing Higbee hurts more, even more so than his hands, which he's got good hands. Tyler Higbee will make his fair share of catches. And especially in the red zone, Tyler Higbee's a great target in the red zone that they're going to miss. The Rams don't run a traditional run game per se. Like, they'll run the ball a little bit, but they use a lot of screen passes to really set up their offense. And without Tyler Higbee as the lead block on some of those screen passes, I worry a little bit about how effective that can be, right? To get the ball into Cooper Kupp's hands, get Higbee in front of him, and just plow forward for a few yards, right? Or Odell Beckham on the other side if you're going that way. without that reliable block from Tyler Higbee, from your tight end who can pull out there and make that block, I wonder if that can be effective. Now, as a young player, I think going into a game when you haven't played a lot, you haven't caught a lot of balls, getting those early blocks in on screens might actually allow him to get into the game a little bit more, right? Might actually allow him to get a little bit more comfortable if that's the case. Bryson Hopkins is 6'4", 245 pounds. He is a big man.
Yeah.
Right? And get him out there, get him blocking a corner or something like that on an early screen. Let him get into the game that way. That might be a good way for the Rams to get him into the game beyond just, throw him the ball, right? There's other ways you can get guys engaged in the game and get their confidence level up without needing to throw him the ball and have him break off a 30-yarder, right? So maybe look out for that early in the game in particular. They can get those young tight ends out there throwing some big blocks, right? Getting guys open, and maybe that's a way they spring some confidence out of them. But if they can't get those blocks working, that screen game is such an important part of their offense that I worry what'll happen if they can't get that going.
Yeah.
There is another set of positions we haven't talked about yet that I think could play a potentially big part in this game, and it's the kickers. You got two very good kickers in this game. In particular, I mean, we've talked about him numerous times. I'm going to give love to Evan McPherson. I'll talk about him a little bit more when we get to the awards, interestingly enough, because I think I had one issue with the awards. But Evan McPherson, Matt Gay, you got two very reliable kickers. Two guys who got ice in their veins. You got to kick to win the game. 50-yarder, who do you want?
I mean, right now you want Evan McPherson.
Of course you want Evan McPherson. Matt Gay, listen, Matt Gay's been around for a while. He's a great
Matt Gay
kicker.
just came up short on a 43-yarder or something like that last week. So
yeah, he did go 32 of 34 on the season. So
yeah, but when he kicks short, it's just like it's always
field goal percentage.
You're always gonna worry about the kid.
Has hit a 58-yarder in his career.
Right.
But I'm with you right now. Like, game on the line. I don't care where the ball on the field is. I want Evan McPherson on it. That dude, he's got like ice water and like. And even saying that seems unfair because I've said other people in the past have ice water in their veins. This guy's different. Nothing seems to faze him, man. He gets out there. It doesn't matter what the distance is, what the wind's like, what the field conditions are like. He's going to hit it. At this point in time, he's going to hit the field goal. And it's interesting because they had that game earlier in the season with the Packers, I think it was, where both kickers missed, like, I think it was 5 in a row, right, between McPherson and the old man, that Mason Crosby.
Yeah.
They missed like 5 in a row. And since then, I don't think McPherson's missed a field goal kick.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, conditions, what have you in that game. That was strange. I think it's in hearing the kid, that sort of thing, yeah, he comes in with he presents himself and puts himself in there as part of the team.
Yeah.
I think he got that going for him.
Still doesn't have Joe Burrow's phone number though, so that was the thing that came out during media day that I had to laugh at.
Oh, that's great. What I think's interesting, I mean, both are actually pretty young. I actually thought Matt Gay was quite a bit older. I thought he was one of the more experienced.
This is only his third year.
Yeah. So very surprising in that regard. One thing that is very interesting about McPherson is that dude's tiny. That dude's very, very small for a kicker, and that seems a little strange. It's like, what the hell does a kicker need weight for? Kicker needs to have some weight. Usually they're at least going to be like into the 200 pounds. Yeah. Just because you just need weight to be able to scientifically through the means of physics, be able to actually get that ball launched. McPherson's been able to do it. He's a small dude, less than 200 pounds.
Acceleration is created by force plus mass. For those of you who have studied physics in the past, so less mass equals probably less acceleration.
Yeah, but he's able to get that shit around as far as his legs is concerned, and you got to be obviously pretty pumped about the pick, if you're talking about the Bengals, because when you pick a punter in the draft, you're wondering what the hell they're doing. They could have, they could just go in free agency, get somebody else, but Bengals had done enough research, enough scouting on this guy,
Yep.
and they want to pick him up.
Listen, if you like your guy, just take him. That's always been my thing. If you like your guy, just take him. I don't care what position he's in. If he's the guy you like, don't force yourself to go after somebody who you like less, just because the guy I like's a kicker. If that's the guy you like, take him.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of them now in the last few years that have paid off gangbusters. Buffalo a couple years ago, right? Draft a kicker. Everybody looks at them and goes, "Oh, you need a lot more than a kicker." No, sometimes that kicker can be the thing that you need that pushes you over the top. Because listen, right now, Bengals aren't here without Evan McPherson. It's
Right.
that simple. The guy has been automatic in the playoffs from anywhere on the field. They got to a point where they got the ball on an interception and they started celebrating on the sideline because they knew Evan McPherson's going to come in and win the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Right.
He's been that automatic.
Yeah, I mean, and the kid's giving you all the reason to be confident in him.
Yeah.
He presents that, and yeah, his being kind of making himself, ingraining himself as part of the team as well. Yeah, the folks are going to get pumped up and support that as much as possible. One other thing I want to say, since we're hitting on special teams, one thing I have been taking a look at. You have obviously two good punters as well on the other side. You got Hecker and Huber for the Rams and Bengals respectively. But one interesting thing, and I was kind of taking a look at this, is the return games for both teams. You've had, I think, a fairly consistent returner for you in Tyler Boyd for the Bengals. And you've had a little bit of the same thing in Sonny Michel for the Rams, but not quite as much. They've bounced around a bit more, and I think there's a couple other guys for the Rams as well, maybe even one that has pretty similar numbers for return game. Knowing how Super Bowls have usually worked out, there is a lot of energy, a lot of excitement in the air. Teams don't necessarily come out with their best offensive performances in the early parts of a Super Bowl, right? Those first drives, that sort of thing. So I think it's going to be very interesting, as far as who's going to start with this ball initially, who's going to, the likelihood that it's going to be kind of a punt as your first drive potentially isn't really to be ignored, even though we both these offenses have been very impressive this year. Early field positioning and stuff, or the potential for something like a muff punt or just a misplay, getting pinned within the 10. Start to wonder about the early game plans, and if a game could kind of get away from a team early because they don't cover all the aspects. And your defense might get the stop on offense, but if you have, a garbage return game, or if that punter really fucking nails one and coffin corners you, something like that, would be very interesting as far as the early development of this game. And I think early lead in this game for a team like the Rams won't be. I don't know. I think an early lead for the Rams is not too crazy to think that will happen, but I also don't think it will be as big of a factor. I think if the Bengals are able to get out to an early lead, really jump on the Rams here, and show their offense out, get some stops, that sort of thing. If they're able to, pin them deep, you start to wonder like if the Rams are going to be able to complete that full comeback. They had a nice one against the Niners recently, but I think you just have so much offense on the other side with the Bengals. I just wonder if they could take advantage of some field position early, some mistake in the return game or something like that. I think the Bengals have all the advantage in that regard. So I'm very excited to see that. And when you're talking special teams, I really like that Bengals special team unit.
That's interesting because I, for the most part, would favor the Rams special teams. I think Johnny Hecker, probably the best punter in the league right now. If you need a guy to flip you field position, he's going to do it. He's got one touchback this year. 23 of his 50 punts out inside of the 20, and only one of them went out for a touchback. Right? Like, this guy is going to flip the field for you every time. Now, you're right in that Kevin Huber's a good punter, and they certainly have good special teams. But neither team has returned the ball particularly great this year, right? Like, it's not like either team has an Andre Roberts back there or a Ray McLeod, right? There's no. I don't think either team's gonna turn you over on a punt return or a kick return. So it really comes down. So that's really going to come down to a field positioning thing. And I think if this gets into a special teams battle, you got a few punts going early, the Rams are going to be fine with that because Hecker's going to pin him deep every time. Right? It's just what he does. He's the best thing you can be as a punter is consistent, and Johnny Hecker is the most consistent. So I think if it turns into that kind of a battle, I think it could be a bit of a problem for the Bengals. I think they could find themselves behind the eight ball on field positioning a lot. Now the good news is it's not a huge advantage, I don't think, one way or the other. I think both these teams are pretty confident in their punting game. I think both these teams are very confident in their kickers right now. So I think the special teams game is somewhat even here, but I think if it turns into a bit of a punt off early, look for the Rams to maybe gain a field position advantage out of that.
I mean, yeah, I suppose I can understand. I mean, yeah, obviously Hecker's numbers are pretty good. You're talking about, I mean, yeah, I would argue really two of the best punters we have going in the league right now. I wouldn't even necessarily put Huber as far as the good category, but I understand. I mean, the numbers are pretty good. The amount of the fact that you talk about 15 more punts for Huber on the year, and they actually had the same amount inside the tens. That's pretty damn impressive. A little bit better yardage on average for Huber. Maybe having to punt from a little further back, that might be a factor.
Also, 6 touchbacks on the year, though, is a little bit higher than you'd like.
But it all depends. I mean, I think it's very situational. Yeah. I think the Bengals have shown, as far as their offense is concerned, they have been a team that will get to about the 40 or the 50, and then they gotta get stopped. Or they'll or that could be maybe get them up to the 30 and they'll be kicking a McPherson field goal, that sort of thing. But there's been plenty of opportunities where that team has been able to drive down. I think that kind of goes to show in the time of possession numbers. The Rams are really not a great time of possession team. They're actually one of the worst in the league. While the Bengals actually are very good time of possession team. I think you'll see that they do get first downs. They are able to get drives kind of going initially, and then they get it, into that other half of the field, and things have fizzled out for them.
Yeah.
So as far as the opportunities to pin, I suppose, you might have a little bit a different situation for the Bengals, and a punter's not able to give their full leg into it. They're trying to really hit a nice little drop shot or something like that into it. Allow their return guys or their allow those guys, you get allow those guys to get down and be able to actually down the ball there. But I think you really, as far as the kickers are concerned, Matt Gay, McPherson.
Yeah, I think both teams will be content with their kickers going in. I don't think either team's looking at this game going, are we going to have to go for it on weird fourth downs? I don't think either team's thinking that. I think they're well aware that Their special teams will do the job that they need them to do. If you put Evan McPherson out there, he's going to make kicks. If you put Matt Gay out there, he's going to make kicks, right? Like, again, we look at the league right now, and there's so many teams that are struggling to find that guy who can just make kicks. And I think I think it speaks a lot to how important the kicker position is that both of these teams don't have that issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think what was interesting for the Bengals is the way that Kansas City game was going, and they were getting stopped, and they were having to kick field goals instead of get touchdowns. I think kind of the thought was you can't really do that against the Chiefs and win that game. And based on everything you were seeing in the first half, it was starting to really amount to that. Ultimately, I think the Cincinnati just not wavering from what they chose, what they decided was their best course. I think a lot of teams do overextend themselves or go out of their typical game plan because they're playing a team like the Chiefs, and they're like, we need to put up points. Therefore, we are going to potentially go for a fourth down that if you line us up against the other 30 teams in the league, we might not go for that. For some reason, there's this thing that the Chiefs had over.
Yeah.
But no, Cincinnati stuck to their goddamn guns, and then they come out firing in that second half after preventing a touchdown on the other side, and it's a completely different team, and one that they weren't going to kind of change how they operated. That was pretty insane. But on the other side of the token, you have a Rams team that more or less just they couldn't even get field goals. Like the Rams weren't even moving the ball at all early in that game against the Niners, and then even into the third quarter, it wasn't happening. It didn't come around to them till the fourth quarter, to where they are able to start opening up the field a bit. I don't even know if that was necessarily like. I think oddly enough, the Bengals were able to kind of like stick more to themselves through their game, and were able to come back through that. The Rams kind of figured out that they needed to change some stuff up, and eventually got that figured out, and that got them to win. So the way that both these teams really had to come back from quite big deficits late in their games, and almost kind of did it in different ways, I feel. I think the Bengals stayed a little bit more true to themselves and just kind of knew that they had the ability to actually stop this Chiefs team and put up some points themselves. And on the other side, I think the Rams were like, what the hell are we doing? Let's start opening up our playbook a little bit and exposing these guys. And, some penalties and what have you really helped them out as well. But, so goes for any team, really. And, yeah, that was, crazy comeback themselves. So very, very interesting. Both these teams not really not opposed to being behind in this game. So
No, it's very interesting. I don't think either team is going to look at the scoreboard and ever be concerned about it, per se. They've both shown a penchant for the dramatic over the course of this playoffs, right? Obviously, the Rams having a big lead against the Bucks, blowing it to come back and win, and then being behind a lot to the Niners and coming back to win.
Yeah.
The Bengals we just mentioned down to the Chiefs pretty badly at halftime, coming back to win that game in their own right. Not to mention last second field goal win against Tennessee. So they, neither one of these teams is going to look at the scoreboard one way or the other and get hung up on it, because both teams have seen throughout the playoffs that those change in a heartbeat. So I think if one team gets out front, don't be surprised to see them try to keep the foot on the pedal for sure. But I also don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. I don't think this is the kind of game that gets away from one of these teams. It just doesn't seem to be in the MO of these teams, right? Like, they don't... even when they're down by a lot, the games don't seem to get away from them. And I think that probably stays true in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it in the fans' eyes, people watching's eyes, people did think this game was... I mean, people were writing off the Bengals that first half. Like, this team's done. Yeah, and all the credit. I think maybe less so the Rams, just because the Niners offense hadn't shown uh, it's been a 2-half team all year, and hadn't shown the ability to really in previous games where they had leads going into the second half, really put their foot down in certain situations. So
Yeah,
the door was kind of there.
Yeah, it certainly never felt like the Niners had the foot on the throat of the Rams the way the Chiefs did, right? Because it's the Chiefs, right? They can score 42 points like that, right? Whereas you're right, the Niners offense had never shown the ability to play a full 60 minutes like that and really just rack up points on a team, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was more of what it was. I think it was just more of an opponent thing where the Chiefs go up by 21 and you're like, great, they're going to win by like 50, right? Because it's the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know if it's the youth of this team and their coach, for that matter, that lead them to believe that they're in every game. It doesn't matter. Like they've never been in a situation where it's different, right? But there's something about this Bengals team. In historical situation where a team of the Bengals makeup should give up, they don't. Right? The plucky underdog, hey, we've made a good run, and then the Chiefs have you down by 21. That's supposed to be reality hitting you. That's not supposed to be, okay, now let's go hit them back, right?
Yeah.
But it's the youth of them or the way that they're coached. They don't know any better.
I point to that, we just talked, we just brought up today that Eli Apple tackle to end the half.
Yeah.
It's so big both ways. I mean, if the Chiefs are all like, all right, fourth down, we'll kick a field goal. There's a little bit momentum gain for the Bengals, but you're still down 24 points going to the half.
Yeah.
That's bad. Like that's a lot. And even though it's just 3 points at that moment, the idea that they completely took 7 points out of there, took the 3 as well.
Yeah.
They took that off the board. They kept that 21-point game at that time. That's just, I just think as far as a momentum play for you, that's just so big. Now, granted, actually, I'm thinking that was after they scored their first touchdown, right? So it wasn't 21 points.
It wasn't 21 at that point.
But it was like the return. It was like, yeah, so points didn't really line up right there. But point still remains that, it was looking like the Chiefs were just going to march right back down and match that touchdown to end the half. And any momentum gain through those 7 points was going to be taken out, and then some. And then if you got the 3, well, they still just drove down on you and scored 3 points on you because you couldn't get anything stopped. So
also the math of them scoring 3 points would have been bad. Changed it from a 2-score game to a 3-score game.
Exactly. Yeah, that would have made sense.
The math on that field goal would have not made it great either, right? Again, sometimes perception is reality, right? In a 2-score game, it feels more manageable than a 3-score game, even if that 3-score game requires you to hit a long field goal with the best kicker in the maybe in the league right now, right?
Right.
So the perception of that looks a lot worse, right? And you go into the locker room and you're feeling a lot worse. But you get that big tackle, you stop them, no points. You go into the locker room and you're coming off of a touchdown. They didn't respond. Feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Tap.
All right.
If you had to pick out one player on either team who maybe isn't getting the love, but is going to be the big-time player in this game, somebody who's going to make the massive difference, who you got?
Here is a this is going to be, and I don't know if this is a guy who is going to get a touchdown for you necessarily. I think this is a guy who's going to, in a given moment when a simple play, just a first down or something to extend a drive. Guy is not going to be high up there on the depth chart. Guy who's perhaps behind one of the best at his position in the league, and he's the second one to it. Talk about our boy P. Ryan back in the backfield for the Bengals. coming out, this guy has been, he's been playing behind Joe Mixon this entire year. He's a nice little mix-up back. He's a big-ass motherfucker. We're talking about a guy who, I brought up the ability, the thinking that Cincinnati might have to, chip block and that sort of thing. Bringing in an additional guy to be able to help Joe Burrow out with this powerful Los Angeles Rams front line. I think you put a big body like that. I think he'll have a few plays for you in this game. That he's not going to be your Joe Mixon. He's not going to be your feature back here. He's not maybe your, obviously all the offensive weapons that we've talked about, your Chase, your Higgins, your Uzama, and that sort of thing. And I think, a guy like Uzama maybe is not as sung, but look for P. Ryan, I think, to make a couple plays as a spellback, and probably, a nice little something, out of the flat, kind of a third option there for Burrow on a given play. And has the ability to perhaps break it down for a good first down for him to keep a drive alive. That's what I'm seeing.
I love that pick because it's right in the spirit of what I was about to pick, but on the other team.
Oh, there you go. Some good play. Yep.
I think coming off of the injured list, he's been injured a lot in his career. But a guy who has always had all the potential in the world, maybe in the big game steps up. I'm looking at Darrell Henderson.
Wow. Okay.
Running back for the LA Rams to make a big play or two in this game. Because the Rams running back situation this year has been a little bit weird. Cam Akers and Sonny Michel have not given you quite what you would want. Cam Akers maybe a little bit more, but even still, I don't think they look at their running back situation and gone, we like that. Darrell Henderson is a big boom bust player. He is sneaky fast and sneaky strong. This is a guy who might only get 5 or 6 touches in this game, but he's got the chance to break one of those off for a massive explosive play. Really change the perception of something. He can catch the ball. He's got good hands. I think Darrell Henderson's your guy who, some random play, it's not going to look like much at first, but he's going to find a way to break it because he does have that big play potential in him. And coming off the injured list, teams haven't been able to game plan for him much. He could be the guy.
I like it. Yeah, backup running backs. They're not going to, they'll probably see the ball of, 4 or 5 times in a game potentially. But some of those plays can be, they can have some real pop to them. And they're often going to be, maybe not plays designed for those guys by any means. But they're an option there and a good outlet. Henderson, I would say, he's been someone who has been even a little, I guess they had a pretty split backfield, obviously, with Michelle there. And then Akers, with all the injuries he's had, coming back in these playoffs. But, Akers, maybe some fumble problems there. How much do you want to lean on that guy? I could see those backs, them having quite a rotation there, which is nice, if you have 3 guys you could really trust in that backfield for the Rams, whether they play a big role or not. I think, get a little spark out of those guys.
Yeah, I think they would gladly trade all 3 of them for Joe Mixon, though, so I don't know how much they like it.
Yeah, you kind of like that feature back in Mixon, but I love P. Ryan as being a spell.
Oh, no, Samaje P. Ryan.
True spellback to him, too. Like, Joe Mixon isn't exactly a small dude by any means, but, you're talking a little over 6 foot, I believe, and closer to 200 pounds. P. Ryan, though, like 5'10" and like a fucking bowling ball at 240. Like, I love that.
In another day and age, that guy would have been a fullback, and he would have been a very good one.
Yes. Bring back the fullback. There has to be more than Juice and like one guy from the Ravens, right?
I'm shocked. Honestly shocked. They don't
Ingold for the Ravens too. Yeah.
Pirine playing a little bit of traditional fullback in front of Joe Mixon on some of those runs, right? And
A little I
because
formation,
he
baby.
is,
Let's go.
or even if you want to go into an offset eye, like a strong
Yeah.
eye or something like
Yeah.
that, right? Get that guy. He is 240 pounds, and he is literally just a brick shit house. Throw him in front of Joe Mixon, who has some of the best vision for a running back in the league,
There you go.
and he'll open up a hole for you. I'm shocked they don't do it, to be honest with you, but I do love the Pirine pick. Obviously, he had that disappointing play early in the playoffs where the ball went through his hands into an interception.
Right.
Didn't see the ball again the rest of that game. I was a little bit worried. Went right back to him the next game, and he paid off. Samaje Perine is one of those guys who has big playability similarly, right? In a very different way. He's not the fastest dude in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but he'll run a dude over if he has to.
And if you take a look, and I say we jump right into this before we give our final picks here. I think we could just sprinkle in a little bit of these prop bets that you've kind of set my way. We'll take a look at Pirine right there. If you don't lock that in, Pirine over 3.5 yards
I saw that.
through FanDuel, I would hammer that one. That's absolutely you gotta believe over 3.5 yards on the game. Cam Akers, I'm a little surprised at some of his numbers. I don't know if he's getting 50 yards in the game, man.
That's what I wanted to bring up. They have Joe Mixon's over under set at 60.5 and Cam Akers at 64.5. They think Cam Akers is going to outgain Joe Mixon in this game on the ground? Not happening.
No.
I'm going, like, for those two in particular, hammer the over on Joe Mixon. I think they're going to give the ball to Joe Mixon a little bit early in this game to try to set a tone. I don't think he's going to break off like 140 or anything crazy like that, but I think 70, 80 yards for Joe Mixon, very possible in this game. And hammer the under on Cam Akers. Guys had fumble trouble recently, too. I wonder how much the Rams are going to trust putting the ball in his hands.
I'd agree. In kind of a similar fashion, as far as some numbers, I'm very, very interested in how they end up so close. We kind of brought up that Bengals wide receiver core, the three weapons they have with those guys, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. The yardage numbers I'm seeing between Chase or Higgins are very close together. I was hoping this was going to be a little bit more of a discrepancy because I really liked T. Higgins over kind of in comparison, but seeing how close they are in numbers right now, I don't know if that's really guaranteed. I'm seeing a 30 or a 75.5 under here for Higgins and an 80.5 under for Jamar, and then 78.5 to 68.5. That's just very, very close for a second option. I do like T. Higgins. I don't know if I necessarily like him for like 70 yards though.
I actually do, and here's why. Jamar Chase is going to have this guy on him. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's kind of good. Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, is that how you pronounce it? I've heard he's kind of good.
I mean, you can't. Yeah, I mean, Jalen.
So I don't think
it's pretty easy to read Jalen Ramsey. Can't even make it. Yeah, this is Jalen Ramsey.
I don't think he'll shut down Jamar Chase. Like, I don't think Jamar Chase is getting nothing in this game, but he's certainly going to cause problems for Jamar Chase. With that being said, you got Ramsey on Chase. T. Higgins might be the guy who they look to maybe unlock Jamar Chase a little bit. If they can get T. Higgins going quickly and early, they might force the Rams to consider a little bit more zone, right? Maybe not going so much man, which then could unlock Jamar Chase, right? Could maybe get some situations where he's not being shut down by Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
I actually like T. Higgins on the over here. I think T. Higgins could outgain Jamar Chase in this game. Only because of, like I said, the Jalen Ramsey factor, right? You got one of the best corners in the world guarding 1A, you go to 1B, right? And I think T. Higgins could potentially have a big game in this one. The other over-under I like on the receivers really quickly. Van Jefferson's over for me is set at 30.5. Hammer the shit out of that over. I really like Van Jefferson in this game to get some yardage. Right? I'm not talking 100 yards or anything crazy like that, but I could easily see Van Jefferson picking up 50, 55, maybe even 60 yards in this game.
Right. They have Cooper Cup at 100 yards plus. I like him, but
105.
I could never make that play.
Here's the thing, I couldn't bet on it one way or the other because I would never bet under that.
Eh.
I could easily see him getting 110, 115.
When you got
But
yeah OBJ there too, that'll be very interesting. Obviously, kind of that same dynamic, or if they really hone in, they really try to take the one. I think Bengals will do it more with scheme. With Ramsey, it's kind of the interesting idea. Do you leave him on the island, right? The Revis Island. That was the classic with a guy like back in the day with Darrelle Revis. You're talking about, I am going to cover my guy. Don't worry about the rest of that shit. Same thing, Dion used to do that too. I got my guy. I got Jerry all day. Jerry Rice is covered by me. Nobody else is going to cover this motherfucker. So you 10, deal with the other 10. That's basically, I think, what you kind of get with Ramsey, as opposed to, I don't think they'll really leave Eli Apple out on an island with a guy like OBJ or something like that. I think it'll be much more of a scheme fit sort of deal.
Yeah.
I do like the idea, though, obviously, that, I mean, who do you defend out of those two? Who do you scheme a little bit more for? Cup has been, obviously, you're talking about the league, the Triple Crown winner as far as receiving is concerned, Cooper Cup. But damn if you don't think that, man, we got to take away OBJ in some of these instances too, because, the ability for him to put a big one on us as well is going to be there. And in the red zone, it is incredibly dangerous. You're talking about, you get Cup going over the middle, that sort of thing, and you just kind of let OBJ run like, a fade or something like that. That's a decent little play right there for that team. I would say also, as far as taking a look at just some of the receiving ones, just to touch upon that before we move on, staying in line with my kind of call before, P. Ryan, I'm seeing it at 10 yards pretty much as far as the over-under on that. Hammer the over. I expect him to get a couple catches out of the backfield there for them. I really like that Van Jefferson pick. I think he'll have some play. And I would say, if you're talking like anytime touchdown scores,
if we pick up the same one.
I love Joe Mix. I love OBJ. And I actually really think we'll get a nice little touchdown here potentially from Tyler Boyd. That would be one of my sneaky. If you're talking about first potential touchdown, and I would say I would sprinkle a little bit on this. You're talking about plus 1,600 odds for him to get the first touchdown of the game. Tyler Boyd. You sprinkle a little $5 on that. That's a big fucking turnaround at plus 1,600 right there. It might be something.
Hey, Cap, do you know who's allowed the most touchdowns via tight ends in the league this year? That would be the LA Rams.
Wow.
I love DJ Ozama getting a touchdown in this game.
That's a pretty good call right there. Plus 2,000. Plus 2,000 for first or last touchdown as well.
I was going to say, plus 430 on its own. If you like that, hit it. I do think CJ Ozama finds his way into the end zone in this game, mainly because I think it's going to be a slightly high-scoring game. And as I said, the Rams have struggled this year to cover tight ends. But that first touchdown pick, the Bengals, they have a tendency to keep the ball, get long drives going, get into the red zone. I just look at that first touchdown of CJ Ozama and I go, oh, that's tempting me. I think that could be a potentially good, if you're looking for like a bigger play to really get something invested in, could make some money off of CJ Ozama getting the first touchdown of this game.
Yeah. I like Ozama. And that's kind of what my thinking was with a Boyd pick as well.
Yeah.
Not your main guy. Maybe not the Chase. Maybe not even a T. Higgins getting that ball. And maybe not a Joe Mixon being able to run it out for you. But your third wideout, your tight ends being able to get that for you. And reliable ones at that. I don't think you're afraid to throw the ball to a Tyler Boyd or an Uzama and not think that they're going to be coming down with it. So I think that's a good call. And, this is obviously leaning toward a Bengals driving down and getting a touchdown right away. On the other side of it, I think Cooper Kupp is going to be a lot of people's kind of favorites for something like that, especially an early touchdown. OBJ, as I brought up, I really, really, really think that the idea of a running touchdown. I mean, you got your boy Darrell Henderson right there, plus 700. I'm seeing for any time. That would be crazy if he was actually the one to get in there. And I'm seeing on the board, hey, if you just want to sprinkle a couple bucks, if you're just going on names, you got a guy by the name of Jake Funk at plus 2,800 for anytime touchdown. Let's go.
The Notre Dame fan in me also wants to sprinkle a little bit on Ben Skowronek scoring a touchdown. Shouts out to Ben Skowronek. But yeah, another, maybe not the first or last touchdown. I could see a sneaky little Joe Burrow scramble touchdown in this game. He's got 5 of them in his career now.
Yeah.
He can move. A sneaky little Joe Burrow scramble touchdown wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility at plus 650 on FanDuel if you wanna maybe sprinkle the Joe Burrow rushing touchdown in there. I don't hate it.
Let's see. Any more touchdown picks? Because I'm taking a look at some of these more of the prop ones here, the game props. Some interesting ones and ones that I've heard a little bit of, what the thinking could be and how you might want to lean. Opening game prop that I'm seeing, and we're looking at this on covers.com as far as the odds and some of these props. Opening kickoff to be a touchback is actually a big one. And if you are a fan of ever watched the Pat McAfee show, he's actually gone into great detail as far as how this goes because he is actually kicked off for a Super Bowl. They get basically a brand new ball that's shit and it really sucks to kick because it's hard as hell. It hasn't been broken in at all. Weather has sometimes been a factor, but right now, obviously, they're playing in LA. They're playing in more or less a dome. Matt Gay is a guy who's who couldn't hit a 40-something yarder. I think that's just more technique and that sort of thing. McPherson, obviously, hell of a on that guy. And I think it's 8 of the last 10 or something like that have not been touchbacks because it's a shitty ball to kick.
Yeah.
So if you want to sprinkle a little bit on the no touchback for the opener, not a bad call. In that regard, even if you have the better kicker in McPherson on that, not a bad call.
I was fully ready to skip that prop, but you had the science ready for it.
We got the sauce, baby. We got the sauce.
I respect that. As you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember McAfee telling the story of the shit kickoff ball.
The inside, baby. The coin flip. I got tails never fails, right?
Oh no!
Gotta go tail.
No.
Heads.
Tails always.
What is
fails,
this guy?
Bro. Tails always fails.
What happened in well, let's see. The last one we saw was heads, right? Heads was the call.
No, last one we saw was tails was the call, wasn't it? Because it was. It was
the
heads
Chiefs. The Chiefs winning again, right?
The Chiefs won it on a heads call.
Yeah.
The one I was thinking of was the more famous coin toss in this playoffs being Josh Allen calling tails because he always calls tails.
Yeah.
And being wrong.
Yeah. Defense could have stopped anybody. It would have been a great call.
No, you're not wrong.
No.
You're not wrong.
Next one, first offensive play of the game, rush attempt or pass attempt. Pretty close odds, but pass attempt has a little bit more favorable. I think pass attempt with these two offenses.
I was going to say, this is one of the ones where, if I do decide to throw like, a couple bucks, sprinkle some fun prop bets down, this one might be one I go pass. Legitimately, two high-powered passing offenses. Both are going to look to make a statement early. Both teams, I don't think, love their run game. Now, the Bengals obviously are perfectly fine with Joe Mixon, but especially if the Rams get the ball first, you think they're giving the ball to Cam Akers off the bat after his last play was a fumble? Nah, I think especially if the Rams get the ball first, this is screen pass o'clock. This is Cooper Kupp screen pass city. I think pass attempt is a really good bet here.
I would have to agree with that. Opening kickoff return for a touchdown. If you're already betting that it's not going to be a touchback, maybe sprinkle a little bit on the yes on this because the odds are insane. You're talking about plus 5,000 odds for the yes, minus 100,000 for the no. I don't even know how that's actually an odd that you could even bet in.
You need to pay $100 to make $1.
Yes, who would do that? But there you go. There's that bet. Wouldn't be about 1-2 little sprinkle right there.
There is one. The next one I find very interesting. Will there be a 2-point conversion attempt?
Right.
Analytics have changed this a great deal. There's a significant amount more 2-point conversion attempts than there has ever been in the NFL.
Right.
And you got two quarterbacks who are very confident in their ability in the red zone. I think plus 235 successful 2-point conversion attempt is not the craziest bet you're ever going to make.
Yeah. Yeah. And the odds for everything else are kind of garbage on that. So I would say that, like, the fact that not successful is a minus 310. Yeah. I suppose you're adding in the fact that none will be attempted, plus that if they do attempt one, they don't get it. It's not like it always happens with it to get it, but yeah, I do like that for the successful. Scored or quarter, any quarter be scoreless. I'm
interesting
surprised.
that yes is the major underdog in this one.
Yeah, very very surprised by that. I would perhaps sprinkle a little bit of that if I had the ability to. Yeah,
I know
just
both of these offenses are pretty decent, but it's a Super Bowl. There's gonna be a feeling out process. I would not be shocked if nobody scores in that first quarter.
First quarter, maybe even a third quarter. Sometimes out of those halves, they come out real flat. Defenses are maybe a little bit revved up. I mean, we've kind of seen that before too, to some flat beginning of halves as well. So that might be something. Fumble loss, very interesting as far as the halves are concerned. I would kind of lean toward the potential for a yes on either of the halves. I don't know what pick your poison on that one.
Especially we've talked about Los Angeles' lead back Cam Akers has fumbled the ball 3 times in this playoffs.
Yeah,
he's lost 2 of them, but he's fumbled it 3 times. He's got a little bit of the fumbleitis going on right now, and I mean, unless they do turn to Sonny Michel, Darrell Henderson, if they want to keep trusting Cam Akers, a fumble lost could be a very realistic thing.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree on that.
I don't see a safety happening during this game. I'll just throw it out there now.
Yeah, and we won't hit on every single one of these. I think the last one I kind of saw there. Largest lead of the game. We have an over/under of 14.5. I know how we've been talking. We don't think this will be, but both these teams have had some crazy point differentials.
Yep.
Granted, Rams were only actually ever down by 14 in that game, never more than that. Bengals, as we talked about, obviously were down by much more than 14.5 points in theirs. But I see this scrappy. I see, obviously, when you talk about offenses that might not come out completely firing in that first quarter and the potential for that, I think you got to take the under on that, 14.5 points. I mean, you talk about 2 touchdown leads. I think that's probably as big as these balloon up to be between these two teams. Just my personal feeling. Odds for both are on the minus side. You're talking 105 for the over, minus 125 for the under. So not great odds either way, but I would take the under in that.
One more in this set of prop bets. Then we'll go to the really ridiculous prop bets for a couple, because I got a couple of things about the ridiculous ones.
Okay.
Will there be overtime? This is another one of those ones where if you want something that could pay out a little bit, both of these teams have played dangerously close games all playoffs, with the exception of the Rams' first game against the Cardinals. Every other game has been really tight. The potential for overtime in this game, a lot higher than they're giving it credit for. Almost plus 1,000 on this one. I mean, if you're looking for something that could pay, there's real overtime potential in this game.
Yeah. And if you're going for that, you might as well sprinkle on that, will the game be tied again after 0-0? If you're going for the overtime, you might as well maybe even sprinkle a little bit on that one as well,
Yep.
even though those aren't the greatest odds. But yeah, absolutely.
Parlay them together, it'll help.
Um,
One more, just a silly one. Just got a little bit of a silly one. Actually, no. Two more.
Sure.
Super Bowl MVP, put down your money on Jamar Chase. I know, quarterbacks always win Super Bowl MVP. I get that. I know he's going to be covered by Jalen Ramsey. But Jamar Chase is the kind of guy who could catch two balls and go for like 120 yards and two touchdowns and win MVP like that.
Yeah.
Right? He is that kind of a receiver. And at plus 1,800, that might be the kind of place where you can again, if you're looking for those prop bets where you can maybe make a little bit of cheddar off of them, Jamar Chase as the MVP isn't the craziest one.
Yeah. And it's the stigma that real potential that receivers are, if receivers having a good game, the quarterbacks having a good game as well, perhaps a better one, and so therefore it's just naturally going to go the quarterback's way. We're seeing Aaron Donald on there, obviously, at plus 1,600. I think the defensive MVP for the game. I like those calls. I like the thought of sprinkle a little bit on that. On the other side, it would be maybe a Hendrickson, but like
I was gonna say Trey Hendrickson is plus 10,000.
I mean, a little bit, Hey,
sprinkle down some cheap.
I mean, if you want to throw this is the sort of shenanigans I would get if I was in Vegas and I had the ability to have access, because I don't have. I'm in California. I don't have access to sports books like these. I would absolutely throw a little $5 on like maybe a Trey. Why not? Why the fuck not? Would this not be the most insane thing ever? If this plays out the way that it has kind of played out for the Bengals this entire year, it's impossible. It's an impossible thing, but I would love to see what the odds are, and I would absolutely throw $5 or whatever on this. Evan McPherson. What are the odds that he could be
13,000?
13? I thought it would be even better than that, but I would sprinkle a little bit on our boy Evan McPherson, because why the fuck not? If you got a guy who's potentially in this game right here, if he kicks 3 field goals, he beats Vinatieri's record for playoffs in a
nails
field goals.
Game winner on top of that, and all of a sudden,
I mean, who would deny it?
That's not the craziest thing I've ever heard.
I would love to be able to sprinkle a little $5.
Didn't even think of McPherson. I'd change my mind. Go with the Evan McPherson play, because I think that's a great, legitimately, given the way the Bengals playoffs have gone.
Yeah.
Right, McPherson hits a 52-yarder to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He's the MVP.
Walk off
The Super Bowl. The dude's the MVP.
And he's probably just like,
yeah, he's
what
gonna
you
go
think
out
was
there,
gonna happen?
arms down with the swagger. I love the McPherson pick.
Yeah.
Take my Jamar Chase pick, throw that in the bin, throw down some cheddar on Evan McPherson. I love that one. 2 of the prop bets I wanted to touch on, of the ridiculous ones.
Yes.
First song played during the halftime show. California Love is by far the favorite.
Got it.
And that makes a lot of sense. But I also think there's a chance they end with California Love.
Right.
At which case, I don't see it on here, but I imagine it's a pick. I would not be surprised if they start off with I Need a Doctor. If you want to build in Dr. Dre, right? Like if the idea of this is Dre is your star of this, which I think he is, right? Given everything that's happened with Dre over the recent months, right? Obviously, he had that near-death scare a little while back. if your build-up is Dre, right, you can have Mary J. Blige sing the, what's her name? Skylar Grey. You can have Mary J. Blige sing the Skylar Grey parts. M wraps up, you build up to Dr. Dre, right?
Yeah.
I could see that being a thing. Forgot About Dre is also a pretty good option if you want to do the build up to Dre thing.
Yeah. And so California Loves, that's kind of an automatic. I think that's actually a good call that might be the finale right there. It's a good one to end on for it. What I'm thinking is when you're starting a show, when you got an opener, it's got to have the hook, right? You got to be able to recognize this damn song probably from like the first 2-3 notes in, right?
Yeah.
You get the crowd pop right then.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh shit, it's a fucking Dre show. Next episode's a good competitor for that, I think, as far as something, Forgot About Dre, obviously. It has a little bass kick in there. Still DRE is iconic as far as the little piano line right at the beginning. I could absolutely envision them opening with that. Just a little beep, 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 and it's just like going right into it. Still DRE for the opener. I would say would be my pick amongst this list right here.
Another one that's not on here, but I think could be interesting play. Because again, in my head, I'm thinking of how the set's going to work. Right? So if the idea is you're going to build up each performer, right? Like build up to their part. Either Dre or M is going to be the last person out then, right? I would imagine the first person out of this list would either be Mary J. Blige or Snoop. Gin and Juice fills all of the roles that you have just mentioned. It has that iconic hook. The second you hear Gin and Juice playing, you know it's Gin and Juice. Start with Snoop, and you can lead into Still DRE, which will lead into Snoop and Dre.
I would say Gin and Juice would be more of what I would expect if we were doing like a Triller card. I don't know if they could go lead off with Gin and Juice for the Super Bowl. I think that's the thing. And then honestly, this kind of goes into a topic that I was kind of interested in, and this will take it in a completely side way. We'll go back to the songs. Yeah. Did you see that Weed Maps, the online service that you could use if you are in a state that has, legal weed, recreational weed, that sort of thing, and even for medicinal for a while. Online thing, you can just, plug in your location. It gives you all sorts of dispensaries, that sort of thing. Weed Maps was willing to pay the NFL $7 million for a 30-second spot. Advertising, obviously.
Yeah.
NFL has kind of shot it down, or NBC has shot it down, I guess, because NBC is the one carrying the coverage on it. But I think there's still like this weird stigma, and obviously it's not federally allowed down here in the U.S., but and you're playing by a little different rules up where you're at. But
we're all clean, baby.
Yeah, but we
more dispensaries per block than grocery stores.
I mean, which really doesn't make any sense, because when do you need food more is when you have the munchies.
So, legitimately, just as an aside here, at the major intersection by my house, within 2 minutes walk, there's 5 different weed stores. I'm like, that is some competition. That is some competition right there. I respect that. Anyways, your point.
So yeah, that just kind of goes to the original thing. And I think why you don't see it on this list, Gin and Juice, it just starts to play toward
maybe
the more a California Love, a Still DRE, I Forgot About Dre, or Forgot About Dre. All you have your censored versions of shit like that I'm sure is what they'll actually be doing out there.
You don't think Dre's gonna drop? You don't think Dre's gonna drop a motherfuck the police and Forgot About Dre?
Right. What's your Gatorade bath call? What's the color?
Oh, it's gotta. So, it's almost always orange, right? Like orange is always the favorite, right? Because it's been the most popular color over the years. I actually think, and I actually have a reason for this. I actually think the lemon lime is the choice this year, because Odell Beckham has come out and personally stated he has never played on a team that has not used lemon lime.
Wow.
It's his Gatorade of choice apparently, and he says he's never played on a team that hasn't used it. It's the weirdest thing that I've ever heard in my life.
This is a little bit of wait. This is jumping ahead a little bit. This is a Ram prediction from Craig here, because that means the Rams win. This is for the winning football coach. So this gets
no. Here's what I know.
Here,
2 teams are playing in this game. One of them's got to win, and I know one of them for sure is using lemon lime.
Odds, just playing odds, just barely. All right.
I don't know what the other one's using.
Right.
It would make sense for the Bengals to have orange Gatorade, you would think.
Yeah.
But I know for sure the Rams have lemon lime.
Yeah. I usually like taking a look at some underdogs on this. I would probably have to go orange on this just because of it's just the common. It's just the go-to. Everybody loves orange stuff, like, so
that's fair. I can't argue it.
Although I will say this is the remains of a lemon lime Gatorade that I have right here. So
lemon lime Gatorade's the best. I'll throw that out.
It's pretty tasty. Yeah, I don't think it doesn't get quite enough love.
No.
But yeah. Let's see. I mean, I don't.
That was it for the prop bets. I was really more.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. Yeah.
I love the song bet one because I think there's a lot of interesting play in there, right? Because I'm with you. You need something that's got that hook, and more importantly, something that can play in the dark, because something the Super Bowl loves to do is blacked out and the first couple beats of the song play, and then you bring up the lights. California Love fits that. Forgot About Dre fits that.
Still DRE, like I just envision it. I can see it happening.
I envision Forgot About Dre, right? When it's dark and you hear the bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
Right?
It's there. I mean, yeah, you can definitely recognize it through that. So we jumped to the prop bets. I think we took our deep dive. Let's pick our picks, I suppose, right? I think it's about that time. So let me write it down for you. This is very interesting. We have the LA Rams actually as the away team. Bengals are technically the home team because they just rotated now. Even though this game's in SoFi, it's down in LA. Technically,
I could see the fan base working out where the Rams are the away team too.
It's the Super Bowl, so it's such a hodgepodge and mishmash. Yeah. There will be representation, obviously, for both teams that will be coming out, but it's more of a neutral site than you would expect, given that it's down in LA. Usually, this would be a big home advantage for one of these teams. LA is it's so fucking expensive, and you bring in people from all over the place, and it just doesn't end up being as much of a factor either way, I think. You have we got 3:30 Pacific kickoff for the game, 6:30 Eastern. Rams getting a -4 on the road here, and we have an over/under. Usually don't hit on this. We have an over/under of 48.5 points on this as well. Craig, give me your against the spread, give me your outright, and give me your over/under on the total here for this
ATS,
game.
I like the Bengals. I think this game's going to be real close. We got a razor-thin game here. Again, on paper, it doesn't look like that, but this game's so much more than on paper. We've mentioned everything about it already. The Bengals may not look like the best team in the world, but they play far beyond the sum of their parts. Right. And obviously, Joe Burrow is just a different kind of being, man. The guy feels no pressure ever. Outright is where this gets hard, because I do think this is going to be a really close game, and because of that, I think I like the Bengals to win this, because I think it's going to be close, because I could see this coming down to a last-second field goal, I think Evan McPherson pulls this thing off. I really do. I can see Evan McPherson walk-off field goal for the win. It's going to be that close, I think, coming down to the wire. And, man, you just can't bet against him right now. If the ball's on his foot, he's going to hit it. Call me crazy.
All right.
But also over. This game's gonna be fairly high scoring, I think. Not ridiculously high scoring, but 30-27 Bengals.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Wait, yeah, 30-27. Nice. Okay, so yeah, yeah, that lines up pretty nicely.
It also gives
A good
McPherson the
score.
field goal record. I was thinking about that
That's right.
too.
Nah, he's got to get a few in this one.
Got to get the field goal record.
Um, yeah. Very interesting. I gotta say, going in, um, against the spread, I knew that the Rams were going to be a favored one here. I knew that, just kind of leaning that it was going to be close. I like the Bengals on that. Um, as you've probably you've already kind of broken down for what I've expressed already as far as even the prop bets and that sort of thing. I have the Bengals to win as well. And I mean, I hate to do it because it's not going to add too much variety, but I got the over for sure on this game. I got to expect that these teams are at least going to be putting up over, each of them over 25 or so points in the game here. So I got the over as well. So I guess we end having the exact same pick for this finale here. Cincinnati ATS, Cincinnati for the win, and the over against 48.5 points. That's our Super Bowl 56 call right there. I think it's a good one.
I honestly, it's interesting because we didn't mention it. This is the game of the worst combined records in the history of the Super Bowl. I don't know if you've seen that or not. 22-12 is the worst winning percentage in Super Bowl history. The only one that comes close to it is the Steelers and Cardinals game from 2008, where they were 21-11 combined, but that's because the Cardinals were 9-7.
Yeah.
But it doesn't play like that. These are two incredibly gifted offenses, and it is going to be fun. It's interesting because in my house, my mom hates both of these teams. Absolutely despises them both. The Bengals because she hates their jerseys. The Rams because she I wouldn't say she's quite as avid as you, but she has been a Niners fan for most of her NFL fandom. So obviously play the Rams a lot.
Yeah.
Doesn't like them. But I will say, even if you're a neutral going into this game, it's going to be a good one. I have trouble seeing these two teams playing a game that will not be entertaining as all hell.
Yeah. I think this is a Super Bowl. Kind of talked about it. Typically, Super Bowls, these teams just aren't going to come out firing at 100% right off the bat. Nerves, energy, all that sort of thing. That just doesn't usually happen. But yeah, you talk about some pretty crazy dynamic offenses. Two good stories as far as each side. Whether you're talking about the entire Bengals team and Joe Burrow, that sort of thing. Matty Stafford, and even a guy like OBJ on the other side, being able to, have their opportunity now after, being stuck
many years of
stuck up north somewhere.
teams.
Yeah, exactly. Stuck up north somewhere and not exactly in a great situation. So yeah, that'll be very interesting for this game going forward. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a hell of a Sunday. Unless we have anything more we want to hit on for the Super Bowl, we could just quickly touch upon some of the awards that were settled this week as well. We have both the 2022, 2021, 2022 season awards, as well as the Hall of Fame inductees.
I think let's start with the Hall of Fame, because I think the Hall of Fame was pretty easy what they were doing this year. They picked a bunch of the guys who probably deserve to be in there that have been on the ballot for a while, because there wasn't really any out and out first ballot guys this year. I think the closest we got was DeMarcus Ware, maybe Andre Johnson, but I don't think either one of them was a clear-cut first ballot guy, right? So that's why you get guys. Now, some of these guys, obviously, being that they've been on the list a while, I don't know as well. I'm sure, for example, Bryant Young is somebody you'll be more familiar with than me, obviously. Yeah. For me, the name that stood out as somebody who I'm happy he got in and he deserves to be in there is Dick Vermeil. obviously, when I was young, the greatest show on turf was like the coolest damn football team of all time, man. Like they were awesome. And Dick Vermeil was obviously the coach of that. He had a long career, coached a lot of teams. He was a very good coach for a lot of teams. Uh, he's got the one Super Bowl, obviously, coach of the year. Uh, in the Ring of Honor of two different teams. Very good coach, very much deserved it. That was the name that stood out to me. You want to talk about Bryant Young for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Bryant Young, I mean, he was, yeah, just an absolute beast. I mean, defensive tackle that held down the Niners team. Some rough years in there, especially in those early 2000 years. Coming from that 90s team that was, very competitive. Uh, it was kind of a shame that toward kind of the end of his career there, he was having to battle through, and he's playing for teams that are winning, 2-3 games a season. So that was kind of the only shame in regard to that, why he maybe didn't get as much recognition, maybe on a national scale. But yeah, you're talking about a guy that was a member of the All-Decade team in the '90s, just absolutely owned the middle right there. When you talk about those teams that had you had a guy like him, really kind of anchoring your defensive line, along with a guy like Patrick Willis, who is an unfortunate snub, and it's someone who I was going to bring up as far as this Hall of Fame class. You're talking about two of the best guys, linebacker, defensive line, a hell of a 1-2 combo, and just not being able to really have a team built around those guys in those early 2000 years, mid 2000 years, was a damn shame. Yeah, Bryant Young. I mean, yeah, just a crazy talented guy that just probably just didn't quite get quite as much recognition. Dick Vermeil, I did want to bring up Dick Vermeil. I believe early in his career, was a assistant coach way back for a little, what was called back then junior college, now called community colleges, at the College San Mateo, which is actually the place where I am employed.
Ah,
Along with the likes of folks like John Madden, being amongst, Madden actually, he did not coach for the Bulldogs, as we are known, but he did play for CSM way back in the day, and was still kind of part of the community college system when he started going up. Dick Vermeil, very early start for his career, was right there at the College San Mateo, so it's very cool to see a guy like that. Obviously, he's the amount of success to different teams.
yeah.
He's one of the more recognizable coaches that you'll see. So pretty awesome to see that. Honestly, a guy like a Leroy Butler or something like that, Richard Seymour.
Richard Seymour was the other one I had in mind.
Yeah,
Obviously, those Patriots team. He was the beast on the defense, right?
Yeah.
I think.
But
I think the biggest thing that hurt Richard Seymour was he didn't quite have the numbers that stand out as Hall of Fame level, but
yeah,
he was an
around.
absolute dog.
Yeah.
He was an absolute dog on those Patriots teams.
But I gotta say, a bit of a letdown. I brought up Patrick Willis. I think if you literally have a guy like Patrick Willis for, I suppose, a few more years, and he's playing at that level, like this. There's no fucking doubt. But just a career that unfortunately was cut a bit short. We brought up before a guy like Devin Hester. Want to see
he was never gonna get in first ballot though. Like as much as I think he maybe should have, he was never going to.
Impact of the game, all that. We'll see down the line. I mean, he'll hopefully get his fair shake. Torrey Holt not getting in as well. I mean, he's been on the ballot, right? So, that's like, how much longer are they gonna keep that guy off?
This one's a rough one for Torrey Holt to not get in.
Right.
Because Reggie Wayne would be another one too. Right. Both of them.
Yeah.
Right. Because this was the year where they were kind of looking back through the ballot and going, okay, we don't have any true first ballot guys who we really feel comfortable making first ballot Hall of Famers. So let's go back through, find some of the guys who have been waiting a few years and get them in. Um, I thought this was Torrey Holt's year. I really did. I thought this was Torrey Holt's year for sure. Um, Reggie Wayne, I still think will get in. He's only been on the ballot a couple years. I think Reggie Wayne will get in, but if Torrey Holt didn't get in this year,
Yeah.
it would be a shame if Torrey Holt was not in the Hall of Fame. It would be an absolute shame because, again, him and Isaac Bruce were one of the nastiest wide receiver combos you'll ever see. And man, with Kurt Warner as the quarterback of that team, Marshall Faulk, that greatest show on turf was disgusting. But Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce were one of the nastiest wide receiver combos you'll ever see. And I think Torrey Holt really needs to be in the Hall of Fame. One more name that I mentioned it when we were talking about the finalists and guys who I thought deserved to be in. Jared Allen, again, getting snubbed. Honestly, I don't know what more you could want to see out of Jared Allen to get him in the Hall of Fame, to be honest with you. Like, it's one of those guys where he had a pretty long career. He had all of the stats you could ever want: 136 career sacks, 498 solo tackles, 643 combined tackles, 32 forced fumbles. He's got 6 career interceptions as a defensive lineman, right? Like, I don't know what more you could want out of the numbers, right? 5-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, led the league in sacks twice. I don't know what more you want to see out of Jared Allen's stats. I don't know if it's, again, one of those things where they don't feel like he's been on the ballot long enough. But I do hope Jared Allen gets in, because a name that maybe doesn't have a ton of sexiness to it the way Torrey Holt or Reggie Wayne do.
Right.
But the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it kind of just one of these things that's a little bit of a shame. It seems like it's a pretty long time, but then, yeah, who they line up with, you know, year after year, the fact that it's, you know, you're talking about a 6-year window for them to be named for it. You hope guys like Holt are able to find a spot. I don't disagree, though, that this might have been the opportunity for that to happen. And yeah, we'll see going down the line. I mean, that's a name that, you know, if you're talking about receivers of an era sort of thing, I mean, it's hard to deny that Holt's not right there.
Yeah.
So, shame there.
The thing that scares me is you look ahead to next year, you got 2 straight shot first ballot easy picks in Darrelle Revis and Joe Thomas. I mean, both of them go into the Hall of Fame first ballot, no question.
Yeah.
I think even guys like Jahari Evans and Cam Chancellor are going to be knocking at that door. And you're just starting to run out of spots, right?
Right.
And as I mentioned, you got to imagine Andre Johnson and DeMarcus Ware are going to make the Hall of Fame at some point. Jared Allen's got all the numbers in the world. You mentioned Patrick Willis. He was an absolute dominating force. And they love to get at least a few defensive players in every year. It's starting to look dicey for Torrey Holt, and that really bothers me.
Yeah.
There's, you know, sometimes we look at Hall of Fames for the guys who make it in and go, does that guy really a Hall of Famer? Torrey Holt should be no question. If he doesn't make it into the Hall of Fame, it's a real issue on the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we haven't had, you know, other Hall of Fames from other sports leagues give us some disappointment in recent
Are you
times.
saying Barry Bonds not making the Hall of Fame is a problem?
Just a bit. When you're
I'm 100% with you. Barry Bonds more than anybody else. Because I understand Kurt Schilling and Roger Clemens, because if you look at them before they bulked up, they weren't really anything, and then they could throw 105 miles an hour, and they became great pitchers. That I'm fine with. Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer well before he bulked up.
Yeah,
right.
And I'm honestly even a little tired of that.
I don't
that argument, because like baseball was pretty damn complicit in the whole goddamn thing while it was going on.
They didn't have a drug testing policy back then.
Yeah.
They essentially told their guys it's legal.
Yeah.
Why are we punishing them for it?
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
And you know, what did we get to see? We got to see one of the greatest eras of baseball we've ever seen. Everybody loves dingers, and when you got Sosa, McGuire, and Bonds just fucking destroying balls, yeah, you let it slide. You let it slide. A-Rod and shit, like, yeah, why the fuck not? What are people going out to see? Are they going out to see a 3-1 game in which, the winning side racked up, 8-9 hits and they were able to spread the ball across? Or are they going out there to see some fucking dingers? Dingers! We all want it. We all love it. But
I also understand the other side of that of steroids are really bad for you.
Right.
And I mean, I don't want to rest in peace. Jeremy Giambi died a couple days ago.
Yes. Yeah.
From heart problems that were probably caused by a lot of steroid use.
Yeah. And exactly. So you don't let it go rampant. Yeah. But you put in regulations to allow, like, I don't even think it should be abused for the workout. But like, if you're talking about, like, recovery times, that sort of thing, this is just stuff that...
Yeah. Done correctly, therapeutically, right.
It's not out of the realm of the world of medicine, basically.
No.
This kind of half-assed rules that kind of got put in place, and then eventually it gets, brought to arbitration, and... Yeah. All the shit that happens through that, it was just such a fucking sham by the MLB. They know what they were getting.
100%. They were like I said, when you don't have a drug testing policy in place, you are telling your players, it is legal. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
Well, there you go.
I don't think punishing the guys for it is the right way to go about it.
I think we filled our baseball quota for the week right there.
Aaron Rodgers is the MVP. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue numbers-wise against that. You talk about regular season, pretty goddamn, outstanding in regards to that. Just so few picks, too. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I think that's what stands out more is literally that touchdown-to-interception ratio, more so than, like, the touchdown number or the yards number or anything like that. I think it's that combination that got him the award. I want to say pretty easily, right?
It was almost
Brady got a little bit, Cooper got one, and then that was fucking
Cooper got one, and that's going to be my point here. I don't agree with it, but I also understand that a wide receiver is not going to win it.
Right.
Cooper Kupp was the MVP this year. Yeah. Right? Like, Cooper Kupp was this was the year Cooper. Because you're right, none of the quarterbacks' numbers really stand out as mind-blowing. Aaron Rodgers' numbers were very good. But in a usual season, they're probably not good enough to win you a quarterback award MVP.
Right.
This felt like the year where maybe you could go with Cooper Kupp. Yeah. Given all the things... Because he was next level good. He was... If we are being honest with ourselves, Cooper Kupp was the MVP this year. The Rams are nowhere near where they are without Cooper Kupp. Right? So...
I mean, in that same token...
I agree in the sense that it's a quarterback award.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you might as well put AP Most Valuable Quarterback on this.
Right.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
So in that sense, Aaron Rodgers was the right choice. Right? I understand the people who maybe voted Tom Brady, but Aaron Rodgers had a better year.
Yeah, and it's something I brought up before. If you're truly looking for a impactful player on teams that doesn't just fall into that hole, you got to look at the offensive player of the year, which Cooper Kupp did end up winning.
Cooper Kupp won, and again...
And it's kind of thought of as the second place, more or less, but that's honestly how it's gone, just because it's always going to just be given to a quarterback. It'll be interesting if that mold's ever broken anytime soon, and if that's able to continue. Because once you start to, like, actually... bring in and accept the those other players as being their most valuable player potentially. I mean, really, you think about it though, what the hell are the Packers without Aaron Rodgers? We saw what Jordan Love does. That's not a pretty sight. So you have that, I suppose, but with no doubt, and I think that's why Kupp gets offensive player of the year. obviously, we were talking about guys like Jonathan Taylor being right there as well. I suppose they kind of
The Colts missing the playoffs killed any potential of that happening.
precisely. And when you're talking about a most valuable player, I think they have to be a valuable player in the most important times as well.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp absolutely shows that there. So, you know, maybe he's this pseudo MVP as it is with the Offensive Player of the Year is what Kupp's gonna have to deal with now, and we'll see going forward if that's something that can be considered. But yeah, this is a quarterback
Yeah.
award right now, so
Yeah, and I will say if Derrick Henry wasn't going to win it last year, then like Cooper Cup wasn't going to win it this year, right?
yeah,
Like it's not like Cooper Cup's season was any more ridiculous than Derrick Henry's was last year, right? They both had unbelievable years, and Aaron Rodgers was the MVP both times.
right.
So we know what it is at this point.
Um, to hit back, let's just kind of hit on some of the rewards real quick. You talk about rookies of the year. Offensive side, you got Jamar Chase for the Bengals. Defensive side, you got Michael Parsons for the Cowboys. I
Very easy picks.
couldn't argue either one of those bad boys. Like that's
Very easy picks. I don't think that was ever in question.
yeah. I'm trying to think as far as like some of the rookie players. Maybe like a Naj or something like that was pretty impressive in having to jump into a starting back role for a team like the Patriots that, you know, had a quarterback that would throw the ball 65 times a game and only pick up 165 yards.
Yeah.
You know, you got that sort of thing to have to overcome. Michael Parsons, I think, yeah, just an absolute fucking freak.
On
Not
the defensive side, Patrick Surtain would have been the only one you could have said was even close, and I don't think he was.
who was the DB picked up by the Chargers? Because he had a great early part of the season, and then kind of fell off a bit. Asante, no.
Yeah, Asante Samuel Jr.
Okay, Asante Samuel Jr. Yeah. Early on, that would have been perhaps a good pick for defensive rookie, but I think he kind of fell off a little bit as the season went on.
Yeah.
Wasn't getting the pick numbers and that sort of thing that he was getting before. Coach of the year, Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel. I
love it.
I like it because of how badly banged up that team was, and they just didn't have their star offensive player right there. They still went out there, got first seed. I think those things added into it is the reason
That's fair.
why Vrabel does get it there.
That's fair. I still like Sean McVay for it, but I get Mike Vrabel. I do.
Right.
Like I get it one way or the other, right? But I think Sean McVay dealt with a lot of things this year in LA. Beyond injuries, he had to wrangle personalities in. Like they added OBJ and immediately lost their second best wide receiver, and he's had to get everybody to kind of buy into it. And OBJ's had to learn that he was a role player now. He wasn't the guy, and that's never worked well for him, but it's working well for him right now. I think that plays in a little bit to my thought on McVay too, but I can't argue Vrabel, right? Like. I would have also said I think Zach Taylor deserved a little bit of love.
I was about to say,
but I knew he wasn't gonna win it. So
that's a fucking crazy turnaround, though.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And again, we mentioned it before. Their defense is literally a mishmash of pieces thrown against the wall to see what'll stick, and they stuck. So that deserves a lot of credit too. But I can't argue Vrabel. Just really quickly, just like I can't argue Dan Quinn as assistant of the year, right? That Cowboys defense,
it was garbage,
really good,
but
at points.
Weren't they just middling this season though?
Yeah, but they were literally the worst defense in the league last year. So being middling is a significant improvement,
I suppose.
I by the way, I can't remember the guy's name, so I'm gonna have to look this up. The Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator was the guy who I thought maybe deserved.
That wasn't Dabble, was it?
Leslie Frazier.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, Dabble was their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I thought Leslie Frazier deserved a lot of credit. If you had told me at the start of the season Bills defense was going to be the best one in the NFL, I'd have told you were crazy.
Yeah.
And they were. So.
Indeed. Yeah, that's yeah, I suppose that's the run. And then Whitworth, man of the year. I really kind of like the man of the year. You obviously have to be like, I suppose, enough of a player to be like a established player on the team. But then it's also like every team votes in their one. So that's kind of the cool thing about that reward.
Yeah,
And good on Whitworth for getting that. But I suppose that is pretty much
two
the
more real
lots.
quick.
Oh yeah.
Two more real quick. TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year. He finally got it.
Oh yeah. Of course. Skip
Should
right by that.
have won it last year.
Ah.
Uh, this if he didn't win it again this year, he would have had to fight someone. That should have been slam dunk last year. It seems like it was slam dunk this year. So congrats to TJ Watt. Pretty straightforward. I couldn't even come up with a name that I thought could challenge him, to be honest with you. There was a lot of good seasons, obviously. Donald had a good season. We mentioned Trey Hendrickson had a good season.
Yeah.
JC Jackson in New England had a great year. But nobody could have challenged TJ Watt's numbers this year. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, there's no NFL Honors Award for Kicker of the Year.
Yeah.
Why?
I guess it's the Ray guy, right? But
Yeah.
they don't like list that amongst this. I don't exactly know what goes into the Ray Guy Award or why it's not listed here, but yeah, that'd be it. Yeah,
Like, props to Justin Tucker for getting Performance Play of the Year, and he deserved it, by the way, setting a record for 66-yard field goal.
sure.
Justin Tucker's incredible. Maybe the reason they don't have this award is they don't just want to give it to Justin Tucker every year, but like just give it to Justin Tucker every year for crying out loud.
Right.
Shine some light on kickers. I'm sick of this kicker slander. I am for the brand on this show, man. I'm showing up for the brand because you look at the Super Bowl this year with Matt Gay and Evan McPherson. You got two great kickers. You look at the teams that make the playoffs, for the most part, they don't have kicking problems. Teams that miss the playoffs tend to have a lot of kicking problems. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's correlation. I think it's causation.
yeah, I mean, we got our boy Rich Bisaccia in there for the Packers for a reason, I think, because special teams is being seen as actually valuable and might have cost them their game.
Well, it cost them a chance to move on.
Exactly.
So,
And then yeah, I guess comeback player of the year we got Burrow there. You can make an argument for a lot of folks. It's hard to necessarily argue Burrow, just for the fact that they're in the Super Bowl now. You got our guy Nick Bosa, obviously, who came off of the ACL tear, was able to have a pretty incredible season himself. So guys like that, but can't really hate.
also really close on him for that one too.
But yeah, definitely some interesting things when it comes to the awards. I think the idea that quarterbacks are just going to own MVP, I think that'll stand for a bit. But it'll be interesting when someone finally breaks through and has too good of a season to ignore. If that could start to kind of open the floodgates for
Could be a guy like Deebo Samuel, right? Maybe it needs to be a guy who literally plays multiple positions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can be your team's running back / wide receiver / have a cannon of an arm and throw a couple passes,
Precisely.
maybe you're the next guy who can be an MVP who's not a quarterback.
Yep.
Because yeah, I would also argue TJ Watt probably deserved a little bit of look at MVP, but again, quarterback award.
Right.
Yeah, you want to go over the coaching hires real quick?
Yeah, I think we can just touch upon it because I think we touched upon these a little bit before, but
with one exception, I think we've kind of mentioned all of them.
yeah.
So let's start with the one exception. Lovie Smith is back. Lovie Smith is the head coach of the Houston Texans. He was shit in Illinois. Like, really bad.
Yeah.
I know why they did it. And I'm not going to go into it in extensive detail, but there's a reason why they did it. And if you look it up, it's not hard to see why. I don't love this hire. Just get Brian Flores if you want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't. Lovey wasn't even that great of a head coach when he was in the NFL. Like, he was decent, but he wasn't an outstanding head coach. Then he spent 4 years ruining an Illinois program that already sucked. He managed to make it worse. That landed him a head coaching job in the NFL. This is why the Houston Texans perpetually suck.
Yeah, yeah. It's I suppose it's a name that still resonates with people as far as the NFL is concerned because they have had it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how much has moved the needle for him is how long are you expecting to have him around? This feels like a loner. This is like
Yeah.
a 2-3 year. Um, you know, thanks for managing the team for 2-3 seasons. We didn't do a damn thing, but yeah, here's your paycheck and get the fuck out
Yeah.
while we figure this out. Yeah, I don't even say what does it say of Band-Aid because a Band-Aid would stop the bleeding. I don't see them uh, doing better under this situation or even not doing worse. This was a team that actually had they had some success toward the end of the season, and you kind of just got rid of that when you got rid of Coley. Um,
Which made no sense
yeah, we
at all.
we didn't like that at all.
No.
So yeah, I that's gonna be a team that they're in a division in which they might not be the worst one, but it'll be interesting for them what they get out of a guy like Lovie Smith, and yeah, if this goes any longer than 2-3 seasons, I would be very very surprised.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. We spoke it into existence last week, Tap. Rich Bisaccia is the new special teams coordinator of the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
We had mentioned it. If he's not going to be a head coach, if you're a team like the Green Bay Packers, whose special teams literally cost you a spot in the NFC Championship game, go hire Rich Bisaccia.
Yeah.
They went and did it. Good on them.
Yeah, I mean they went cheap. They went cheap on their special teams. It literally cost them a potential Super Bowl.
Yeah,
So, it's a shame on their ownership for not really recognizing and valuing that before. Um, Seems like they're willing to do so now. You have you have a guy that, I mean, that Raiders team loved Basaccia. So you gotta have the feeling that the folks as far as the Packers are concerned, those guys that are going to be on those special teams, those basically that lower half of your roster, you gotta imagine he's going to gel with these guys real quick. Yeah, great pickup, and we'll see down the line. This is I hope this isn't necessarily unless he wants it to be. Kind of talked about this before. Some guys are kind of destined for that coordinator role. Bisaccia, he stepped up when he needed to and did well in being a head coach, but a lot of other things come with that, and I hope going forward, if special teams coordination is how his career is going to go, you're getting one of the best right there. I honestly hope he gets potentially another shot at head coaching down the line if he so chooses to.
yeah, 100% agree. Mike McDaniel's the new head coach of the Dolphins. We had mentioned last week that the only reason it made sense for the Niners to sign Anthony Lynn is if Mike McDaniel's was going to take this job.
Yes.
He has. I mean, it's probably the best job out there, right? As far as step in and play well right away, they seem to have the pieces to do that.
Yeah.
The thing that concerns me, we mentioned it last week, Mike McDaniel has built his offense around the running game, and the Dolphins don't have one. But if they can find a way to piece together a run game, I think this is a good hire.
I think that's just it. It's like you do have pieces that might be able to. You could start toward that way. I don't necessarily I don't hate a Gaskin or something like that to have some success with them, but yeah, the fact that he also took with him the tight ends coach and the receivers coach from the Niners with him to the Dolphins, I think is that's a pretty good move for him. Obviously, you're talking about he's going to have guys that he can trust that he's worked with before, be able to establish that offense a bit more. And yeah, McDaniels will have a quarterback I think he wants to work with. It seems like he's very he's pretty pro Tua on this. So seeing what he could do with the lefty there, that's some exciting possibilities for McDaniels down there. And yeah, in a situation to where although granted you are in a division with the Buffalo Bills and the Patriots, Patriots were a bit surprised to folks, and Dolphins were a bit of a disappointment. And I think you still have the pieces together with that Dolphins team to make a pretty damn good run at it at the playoffs. So that might be, oddly enough, first year you might see a Mike McDaniel's in the playoffs there.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Saints promoted Dennis Allen, who was their defensive coordinator for the past 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Has been a head coach in the past. Was not very good at it with the Oakland Raiders. But I mean, he's been under Sean Payton now for the last 7 seasons, as we mentioned. The Saints are very comfortable with their coaching staff. I think this clearly shows they just didn't want to disrupt too much. It's a lot easier to promote internally if you have a guy that you're confident in. So I can't argue it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think this is a. Yeah, I suppose it's a fine hire. It'll work for them. They're in as rough a situation as you could be in. What that team is going to look like, who they could even. I mean, you're talking about who the hell are you even going to have at quarterback for us? That sort of thing. It's quite a mess that they had to deal with. This was, I think, despite the records from previous season, I think I think this was even a worse job, or as bad of a job as the Texans one. Yeah. When you talk about those final 3 jobs there to be filled, they did have a damn good defense though. So yeah, working off of that, I suppose you do your damnedest, and yeah, hopefully a little work with their moving the numbers around, re-signs, that sort of thing. They'll be able to get themselves. I mean, they're like an extra third over the cap right now at like 70 million, yeah. And I think the cap is like 20.
I think it's even more than that. I think it's like 87 point something million was the number I heard.
Yeah, just crazy. So that's gonna be a hell of a turnaround they'll have to make. But at the very least, it seems like you have somebody who operated and ran the one real highlight, I would say, of your team in that defense. So got that going for you.
Yeah, and then obviously we've mentioned it before, so we won't touch too much on it, but it does sound like Kevin O'Connell is going to be the head coach of the Vikings, just waiting for the Super Bowl to end. Right. Runs a good offense with the Rams. Took Jared Goff to a Super Bowl. Seems like it makes sense here.
Yeah. I think so as well.
Anything else you wanted to touch on before I asked for the floor for a couple of minutes?
I think we'll let you have the floor. We'll touch upon the Olympics, I suppose, a little bit ourselves, but I know you've been holding on to this one. I will actually be right back as you start up. I'm going to use the restroom real quick, and then let's get into it.
You guys, right here, I'm wearing this jersey. It is an Edmonton Oilers jersey. Hockey it runs through my veins as a Canadian. I bleed the sport. I've grown up in this city my whole life. I bleed these colors, okay? The Oilers fired Dave Tippett. Fine. He was a shit coach. This cannot be where it stops. It's not Dave Tippett's fault that our GM went out And Ken Holland just decided to buy the worst defense physically possible. It's not Dave Tippett's fault that Ken Holland looked at a goaltending situation that had Mikko Koskinen making $4.3 million a year and being bang old average when he wants to be, and then paid Mike Smith $2 million to be 41 years old. Right? It's not Dave Tippett's fault that he looked at young pieces like Ethan Bear and said, nah, we need another middle six forward who's not going to score for us in Warren Foegele. Now, to be fair, I actually liked Warren Foegele going into the season, so I can't blame him too much on that one, but I hated the trade of Ethan Bear. Ken Holland is a cancer festering in this body. He's just sitting there leeching money off of this damn team. And until you cut that cancer out, until Ken Holland is out of the front office and stops just destroying any semblance of hope this team has, I don't care who's your coach. If Jay Woodcroft is your guy for the future, you've been grooming him for like 7 years. He's been the coach of Bakersfield. Before that, he was an assistant coach. If this is your guy, give him a legitimate chance to be your next head coach and fire Ken Holland. Get rid of all the guys up top who are making all these awful choices of hiring all these old dudes who were good 10 years ago. And let's build the team properly. You have 2 generational stars on this team. Not 1, 2! And you are struggling to make the playoffs?
Playoffs?
Unacceptable. Ken Holland, I know that you're not going to fire him now because, like, what's firing your GM going to do in the middle of the season? But if he survives a day past the end of the playoffs, I will be fuming. Absolutely fuming. Had to get that out.
Had to. Yeah, fuck that guy.
Just... I can't imagine. I'm pretty sure I could be a better general manager for a professional hockey team. Olympics. I will say right now, if you guys are listening to this live, snowboard cross mixed relays going on right now. Y'all should be watching it. Snowboard cross is like the best sport ever. But with that in mind, Tap, have you seen anything in the Olympics so far that you've really enjoyed or something that's really caught your attention or anything crazy like that?
Yeah, I've tried to pop in a bit here and there. Oddly enough, last week or so, I was able to catch some of the biathlon stuff. That actually was something that I almost forgot was a sport as far as that crazy-ass cross-country skiing with the shooting and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. There were some tense moments in that. I've been able to catch a little bit as far as your small track sports. You brought up before the bobsled, your skeleton, luge. Try to catch a little bit of that. Haven't been able to catch the hockey as much, and I know we got some exciting hockey coming up here.
Oh, we got a big boy game tonight.
So what we got
Canada,
tonight?
USA.
Oh, that's right.
Group A of men's qualifying. Essentially how this game's going to work. Winner of this game is going to finish first in the group, get a free bye to the quarterfinals. Loser of this game is going to finish second, going to have to play an extra game.
Yes.
I would imagine. Now, Germany can throw a wrench into that. Germany won the silver medal last time out in an Olympic without NHL players, but I think both Canada and the USA have learned how to build a better team without NHLers. Last time, both teams just kind of sent a team of a bunch of old guys who were playing in Europe who weren't really good enough to be in the NHL anymore. Both these rosters I really like. USA have brought like 14 players who are playing in the NCAA this year. Right, whereas Canada, they've brought in a mix. Like, you got some guys out there like Eric Stahl and stuff like that, some NHL veterans, but you also got guys like Owen Power, Mason McTavish, Devin Levi, right, some young blood to really put some oomph into that team. I think both these teams have learned how to build teams better. I don't think the Germany threat's going to be as big this time around, so I would be willing to guess that the winner of this game probably wins this group. The loser probably finishes second. It's going to be a big game.
Yeah, I mean, not really into obviously any kind of straightforward elimination, but yeah, this is gonna pay dividends, obviously in the tourney. Um, I don't I feel like things are so compact as far as competing and playing within the Olympics that and I think we've maybe even seen a little bit of that in the NFL playoffs, that sort of thing. When you're talking about um, the not being as warmed up and coming off of a like week plus of not playing and then getting back into it. There's the just not being ready to compete on the regularity like that happens. But I don't think that's really the case for the Olympics. You're having to play your games so close together that any break that you're able to get as far as a bye is going to be huge. So yeah, there's plenty on the line for this game, even though it's not a do or die elimination match per se.
Yeah, that bye, we're only really talking about a 2, maybe 3 day break,
Yeah, and that
right?
could be valuable as hell. So
So it could be the complete, especially in a tournament where you're going to have played 3 games in 6 days, right? Those couple of days break that you could get coming out of um coming out of this group could be big as far as getting guys healthy, guys who are a little bit banged up, getting them less banged up, right? So this game could have uh big implications in terms of that, right? That extra couple days off, I think, is really important for the big teams, especially as you go down the stretch, right? Because once you get out of the group stage in men's hockey, there's not a lot of gimmies, right? Um, it's not like women's hockey where there's essentially 2 teams that are going to meet in the finals and everybody else is facing off for third, right? In men's hockey, you got about 5, 6 teams that at any point in time could beat any other team in this tournament. So you really got to be careful and getting those extra couple days, getting your team healthy, getting them prepared, right? You're going to have the foresight of knowing who you're going to get to play, right? It'll be out of a matchup of 2 teams, but you'll probably know, right? You'll probably have a rough idea. Okay, this is the team that we're probably going to face. So,
yeah.
with that in mind, those couple of days are going to be huge.
Right.
So, I think this game has major importance. Um, Yeah. Uh, Beyond that, obviously I mentioned it, the snowboard cross going on right now. Uh, the mixed relay snowboard cross is insane. So for those of you who don't know, snowboard cross is a race on snowboards down this giant snow raceway. It's awesome. How the mixed relay works is the men go down first, right? And they finish, and then the women have a staggered start based on how the men finished, right? So if your guy finishes 2 seconds ahead of everybody else, your female is going to start 2 seconds before everybody else, right? So it kind of creates that staggered start. A lot of fun. Snowboard cross is a crazy event. Ski cross starts tomorrow, also crazy fun event.
Yeah. Nice.
And then yeah, I have paid a lot more attention to figure skating than I ever have.
There you go.
Um, this thing with this Russian figure skater, Kamilya Valiyev. I butchered that probably. This is easily the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Not so much a Russian testing positive for a banned substance. There's a whole reason they can't be called Russia in the Olympics.
Yeah. It's like, who the hell is ROC? Oh, okay.
But have you heard the story and kind of like what's happening here?
I mean, I've heard some like skepticism or just kind of the initial like how it could have played out sort of thing, but I haven't taken a huge look into the details. I know obviously, Russia's come out and made their point. Think it's ridiculous. I know, even the U.S. has come out and kind of made statements on it. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm sorry, the details.
So she tested positive for a drug called trimetazidine, which is not something you'd commonly see in Canada and the US, but in Europe is a very common medicine for treating vertigo. The other thing it does is it lets your heart pump cleaner. Not faster, better. Like it won't make you feel jittery, but you'll get a lot more oxygen through the body, right? It'll pump more efficiently, which obviously might help you in athletics. If what the case is coming out is true, she tested positive 3 weeks before the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And the IOC said, I mean, the results are inconclusive, so go ahead and compete. Competed, and guess what? Second result was positive. Shocking, I know. If this is the case, the people at fault here, shockingly, are not Russia. It's not the young skater. It's the freaking IOC. If she tested positive, don't let her compete.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
That being said, we don't have a ton of detail on it, right? Because it is a medical thing. If she had a medical exemption, that could be a thing, right? If I don't know how common trimetazidine is in other things in Europe, but contaminated substance could be another issue, right? So what I will say is, don't condemn anybody until we have the full story, right? I know it's easy to see, oh, it's a Russian who tested positive for a banned substance. Of course she's cheating. We don't know that yet. So before we condemn anybody to death on the stake, let's let the evidence come out. However, if this is the case and everything that's starting to kind of trickle out is true, this looks awful on the IOC and the International Figure Skating Commission more than anyone else. Even more than the teenager who got caught.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a 15-year-old as well. Who knows how much influence or realistic observation of all those things. And yeah, her coaches, trainers, whatever, I gotta imagine, their awareness on it, that sort of thing. I don't think they're innocent in this, and
No.
perhaps are really the reasoning or the catalyst behind this even being used in the thing anyways. I think most 15-year-olds, they're not necessarily looking to shoot themselves up with something so they get a competitive edge. I think there's
not at 15.
No. So.
I will say the other thing is, if this does come out that she had a medical exemption, vertigo's a bitch. My sister has it really bad, and there are days where she literally can't get out of bed. She'll fall down. Right? Vertigo is a bitch.
Right.
So if she does have a medical exemption for this, and whatever maybe her dose was too strong or whatever it is, I would also say careful with the judgment hammer on that one as well, because vertigo sucks. And if you're having a bad symptomatic attack, I couldn't even imagine trying to be on ice on skates, let alone trying to spin around a bunch on skates. So, let's let this. All I'm saying is let's let everything come out first. But the story itself is insane.
Absolutely, yeah. And for you're talking about someone who had first to do it, in Olympic history sort of thing, going for it. A dominant, performance, that sort of thing. So this will always be when you have any kind of scandal along that line. It's definitely going to be, it's going to get some attention, and I think even let's not deny it. The fact that it's under the Russian representation, that's all the more fuel, sort of thing. I think,
and it that's the reason why I'm.
People are already wondering why the hell they're in the games in the first place, because they got banned, basically. It's well.
But that is why I'm preaching a little bit of patience on here. I think it's easy to see Russia do this and go, guilty.
Right.
and before we have all the real information to determine that for sure.
Right.
Right. So I stress patience here, not because do I think this is probably a case of doping? Absolutely. Right. Like
Right.
all this sounds pretty bad, but let's let all the evidence come out first and then make a decision to condemn a 15-year-old girl. Right?
Right.
Let's remember that too in the age of social media. This is a 15-year-old girl.
Good point. And, I think it's kind of a shame because it's probably going to be the one story that's going to overshadow kind of the rest of the games, probably. It's just something that's going to drag out a bit. I suppose I put that a little bit on NBC too, because who the fuck knows when anything was supposed to go on for this Olympics? They did a terrible job advertising it, if I'm to be honest. At least in the U.S., it's been not good. I don't know what's
been good
like,
in Canada.
Yeah, it's been not good.
I've
here.
heard the NBC. I've heard the NBC coverage in general has been.
Really no one knows when the shit's going on. I literally had my pops over last weekend, and I'm like, oh yeah, we'll flip on the Olympics. He's like, the Olympics going on? I'm like, yeah, it just started, but I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised. Who the fuck knew? Because they threw this shit on Peacock and stuff. So
yeah,
whatever. But it's I'm watching that Snowcross right now. It's be some fun. I'll probably have that popped on, and yeah, we'll see that hockey game later tonight. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one, I think.
All right, man. Anything else you want to touch upon before we wrap this one up for our Super Bowl special here?
I have hit everything I wanted to hit.
All right. Well, I suppose that is as good a time as any. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to catch us every Friday. Typically, we start a little later today. We start an hour late, but typically you can catch us every Friday here on twitch.tv/tapatioj. That's TAPATIOJ. You catch us live 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube. Look up that Sports Clichés podcast. You catch us on there as well. It's been a good one. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. Hope you all have a great weekend. I am Jay. That's Craig. Thank you all for joining us. Episode 16 of Sports Clichés. Hope you all have a great rest of your night, great weekend, and great Super Bowl.
Deuces.